Welcome back to the home studio and welcome to episode 49 of the Stevie Richards Show. Today will be part 2. We finally got past part 1, thank God. Hopefully we don't have to, well, I'll check with my co-host in a second. Hopefully we will not have to revisit the Mystery Woman versus Tomko in part 1. If you want to check that out, that was a very, very enlightening episode about the brains of Vince McMahon. But part 2, we are going to get the actual Unforgiven part 2, talk about Christian versus Chris Jericho, the vacant IC title ladder match. Also, we're going to do a what went wrong with that. And we have a what went wrong concerning Charlotte Flair as well. But what goes right each and every week, is that I get to do the show with my co-host, James Romero. How are you?
Hello. I'm all right.
Was it your Eugene impression?
It's just my impression. Any similarities are purely coincidental between me and Eugene. Yes, we are doing Unforgiven Part 2, and we will not really be referencing Part 1 for Stevie's emotional well-being, I think. That's now in the past. We will never, ever reference it again. So, we're actually going to be... Well, actually, I was just going to launch straight into it. Before we do, we've got the usual intro. We'll do sort of a quick version for you, of course. Stevie is his various YouTube channels. The analysis channel will be changing into analysis, I guess, in quite soon. Are we mentioning that yet?
I don't think so. I haven't decided on it yet. I go through, you're my filter. Much like Vince McMahon claims he was the filter for Vince Russo. You're my filter to say if it's a good idea or not. There have been people clamoring, since we never do Smartport content here, ever. They're clamoring for it. So we're talking about it. But I'm going to switch the pitch to you. I want to talk about James Romero. He has WSI, also the James Romero channel, and a channel that I cannot wait for him to finally stop overthinking and overanalyzing and debut the new damn channel. Come on, man.
It's not my fault. Chris hasn't edited it yet. We've been struggling for ages. You know how many times I've refilmed stuff? It's unreal.
I do. Chris tells me every day.
Man, he's sick of the amount of times I've refilmed. I'm actually finally happy with the stuff we've done now. But yeah, that will hopefully actually be edited. It's going to be out in June. We think it's going to be out in June, this new channel. Anyway, and we need to bring on some more people, to do editing and stuff like that for me as well. But please, goodness, don't email me. The last time I mentioned that, I got dozens of emails saying I'll help out any way I can. But no, we're looking for someone quite specific. But, when we're finally ready to do that, I'll make a public release. You won't miss it, basically. It'll be on all my socials. I've got the James Romero YouTube channel, which I barely ever upload because I've been so busy with this show and other stuff as well. But eventually, when things settle down, hopefully I'll start updating that more. But more importantly, Stevie Richards cameo. 5 stars all across the board, getting rave reviews every single day or every other day. One of the top requested cameos on the entire platform at one point as well, which sort of took us all back, I guess, at one point. And the reason for that is because Stevie puts in more effort than basically anybody else in cameo. You won't just get a hello, happy coming out party, or happy birthday, or happy graduation, or whatever it might be. You get the a full comprehensive video, whether it's a question or anything else you want to know or anything else you want Stevie to do, within reason, of course. Don't bother with Mystery Woman requests. I think I'm happy with saying
the bookings are already coming my way. Got a couple of emails, so yeah, I can't wait till full episode 48 really goes into the feed and the algorithm. It's just like there's a strange obsession with wrestling promoters and people in wrestling to see what's his price. What's his price to do it? What's the price to break the glass and put on the Daisy Dukes and half shirt? What's the price? It's Saudi money for the Mystery Woman. Let's put it that way. And even then, I don't know.
Yeah, everyone's a Ted DiBiase in their own way, isn't it? Aren't they? If they've got the funds, how far can they push it? But anyway,
people in Mississippi know that.
Yeah, especially with Junior at the moment. We didn't do Aha last week, by the way, until the very end.
And I'm much happier. Aha. Yeah. I have not gotten the cease and desist letter from Global Force Gold Incorporated yet.
Yeah, have you got 8 minutes to talk about how Jeff Jarrett can make you rich back in 2018? Amazing. I love that. Anyway, the most important thing we have to do to plug for this show is, of course, the Stevie Richards Patreon. So, this is going to be a bit confusing for us because we're recording on a slightly different day. But what came out last Monday, and what is coming out this Monday coming, I guess.
I only, because we have so much going on. I know this Monday, based on episode 49, because we're discussing Randy Orton versus Triple H and then discussing Randy Orton in general. And I was the person to have one of his first matches when he debuted on Raw in 2002. That is the watch along. That match, talk about all the stuff and little nuance and detail. If you're a fan of the Steve Regal or the William Regal segment that we probably will have up by this episode's release, then you're going to appreciate how much we really just little things. And James, I'm proud of you. You noticed the way I jumped up for the crossbody. You even saw the back of my head really hit the mat on that finish. It had to be the finish, no matter what I thought, because I wasn't thinking after that. No matter what happened, it was over. It was a shoot, whether it was or not. There was no RKO in that match either.
The RKO hadn't been invented yet for Randy anyway. I guess he hadn't adopted.
That's the Evolution. When he was at Evolution, I think that's when he started debuting the RKO.
Well, we're going to be talking about Randy Orton in this episode as well, because he is in the main event of Unforgiven, WWE Unforgiven 2004, against Triple H for the World Heavyweight title. But before we get to the main event, we're doing it chronologically. So afterwards, and this is the last time we'll mention it, we left at Mystery Woman versus Travis. That's his real name, Travis Tyson Tomko. And now we're going on to the next match, the palate cleanser, I guess, as it was. I mean, how many times can you say a ladder match is a palate cleanser, I guess? But in this sense, it is Christian versus Chris Jericho for the vacant Intercontinental title. So, I don't know what I was expecting from this match. Is it just because in 2025 eyes it's just one giant car crash in every ladder match? But this one was very much more considered than I was prepared for.
This one tended to have a lot more psychology than we're used to in 2025. That's why you look at it. And we'll also have the storyline from WrestleMania 20. By the way, I'll back up a second. If it was me today, after having to do that Mystery Woman match, I would have went through Gorilla and screamed right at Jericho and Christian, say, "Follow that!" And then walked out. Rolled the grenade in the Gorilla and walked out. But
didn't you say that you didn't even go to Gorilla position?
I didn't. I went side ramp. I was getting out. I thought I was done that moment, James. Here we go, revisiting. But just to let you know, I thought I was like, and for all I know, I don't even know if I just grabbed my bags and left. But I was not sticking around. I wasn't sticking around for the post-show country club ass kissing. Everybody is so great, which I didn't stick around for either. But these two guys are great, for real. And what we're looking at, if you look at it from 2025, you might think it's plotting. You might think it's a little slower paced, not enough bumps that could possibly kill a person. But these guys worked hard. The psychology, the storyline, the vacant Intercontinental title. There's so many things at stake here and so much personal issues combined with the title. If you look at it in that vein, this is a really, really great ladder match.
With that being said, the reason the Intercontinental title was vacant is because Adam Copeland, then known as Edge, had injured his, I did write it down, was it a groin injury or an ankle injury? Anyway, he got injured basically. And at the time, Eric Bischoff said, well, because he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks, therefore he cannot compete, he cannot defend the title within 30 days. And he almost burst out laughing. It was like, when's the last time you ever heard the 30-day rule for a title, defense?
I'm sure Roman Reigns doesn't know what that is. Back in the day. What he did, he worked like 11 matches in a year or something. Good for him. That's a worker. Roman Reigns.
Second highest paid person on the roster at that time behind Brock Lesnar.
Good for him.
Who worked about as much.
Yeah. Work less if you can and get paid more. That's what I say.
Anything with this ladder match you want to particularly point out? Because I've written in the notes, it's almost like the trope of the basic ladder spots that would be developed, I guess, in the 90s and then carry on through to this day. The ladder to the gut, the sandwich where the guy's lying down on one half of the ladder and then it's slammed on them. That kind of thing. Was there anything else as far as, the psychology you want to point out before we eventually get to the what went wrong segment with it?
Well, I do believe that storyline really made this what it was, even more so than a vacant IC title, even though that stake right there is enough for people to say, I'm going to see a new champion. So there's interest right there. I feel like what they had working against them, even previous to this, not just looking from 2025, is the triple tag team ladder matches that have been like famous and part of legend between the Dudleys, Edge and Christian, and the Hardy Boys. How can you top the chaos and the car crash and basically everybody always doing something? And that's why I think when it comes down there, because you look at our singles ladder matches, singles for singles titles or just singles wrestlers, there's not as much sensory overload that people can enjoy. There's always something going on, always a bump. Two teams are out of the ring. The one team or the opposing team is doing a spot. Then the other people come in and you get everybody climbing multiple ladders. All that stuff is really great dressing and smoke and mirrors on the entire thing for the spectacle. But I dare say the singles matches are harder to do, but they're also better and more digestible. Another one, and we can talk about what went wrong with this on a future episode, Take a Drink. Eddie Guerrero versus Rob Van Dam, where the Fan came into the ring.
Yeah.
But that ladder match was excellent. That was a Raw main event, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And that might have been for the Intercontinental title as well, I believe.
I guess, yeah, just before they got rid of that belt as well. So no one had anything to fight over for on Raw, apart from Triple H's belt.
Yeah, but the match was excellent. But once again, that kind of had, you have Rob and Eddie that can do a lot, and Rob especially with ladders. But what you had a lot of in that was psychology, and there was actually wrestling in the ladder match. And this kind of puts that in there. And maybe it seems like the ladder match became a runner-up type of focus point because you had a title, you had a blood feud, and then you're trying to incorporate cool ladder spots when one guy's the heel too. So Christian does a lot of cool stuff, but I can see Christian kind of trying to tone it back a little bit too, to play the heel character that doesn't want to do the super cool, violent type stuff. Am I interpreting that, or are you sort of looking at it in a different perspective? Because you can say, yeah, it's a little more plodding or slow or not as much excitement from bell to bell, but there's a perfectly good psychological reason for that.
I think the psychology of ladder matches and cage matches got lost around the same time. Because especially with, the escape the cage rules with the cage match.
Jesse's favorite,
yeah. How dare you escape the cage in this escape the
coward.
Cage rules match?
You're a coward.
And but the thing is that I still say the greatest cage match of all time was Brett and Owen, SummerSlam 94. Because you know what they were trying to do was escape the cage to win the entire way through. And I think that got lost very quickly in ladder matches too.
They had top rope and cage bumps trying to escape. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, well, it's the same with ladder matches. It's like, you're not going to get a winner until at least 10 stunts have happened first. And then when it goes back to something like Christian and Jericho, where, there's the occasional stunt, but it was mostly very safe, apart from one bit that we're going to look at in a minute. But it was mostly very safe.
Mostly very safe. And the thing, too, is this is where, as you're talking as a worker, and it's a ladder match, any gimmick match, but especially a ladder match, because the cage contains you. It's right there, Hell in a Cell, Elimination Chamber. The cage matches they're there, and that's it. The ladder needs to be introduced, and that's where it's tricky. Because I've seen matches where they wait to introduce the ladder, and they're chanting for the ladder, or they're appreciating the wrestling, and then they pop huge when somebody finally puts their hands on or brings the ladder into the ring. Then you've seen more matches where everybody goes right for the ladder. And to me, I'd rather take the first version and make them anticipate it a little bit. Then when the ladder gets introduced, the ladder's a part of the match. In those matches, the ladder gets introduced, then we do some spots and get rid of the ladders. Then we bring the ladders back. Well, why are you getting rid of the ladders? Even if they're broke, that's one thing. But you see people throwing ladders out to make room to do spots in the ring. Well, you just cost yourself a potential win by eliminating the thing that's going to help you win the match. That's always bothered me.
So a ladder match should be like of 3 acts then. So the wrestling first, then the first attempts to get whatever's hanging above the ring, and then the finale. So like 3 separate.
Yeah, everything's a wear down too. The wrestling to wear them down to where you see an opportunity if they take a bad bump or they spill over or miss something, or you throw them outside on the opposite side of the ring, you slide out, you go to grab the ladder, maybe they cut you off in a struggle The ladder doesn't come in the ring, but the struggle to get the ladder in the ring is Act 1. Act 2 is the ladder is in the ring. Let's try to win the match. And if we can't, now we can use the ladder as a weapon. Now here come our stunts. Act 3, you're on the ladder fighting, reaching, and you're getting close, and you work off the spots and teases off of that, and then you get your winner. It's a pretty simple formula.
So we would be remiss because of the smartboard segments we never do on this show. Something went wrong in this match, and Jericho actually makes reference to it in the backstage segment following the match as well, saying that his tailbone hurt or something to that effect. But this is Christian shoving Chris Jericho off the ladder and him having rather an unfortunate landing. So Stevie, over to you. What went wrong?
All right, let's take a look at this. Thank you, James. And yeah, I mean, your tailbone's going to hurt just from taking a regular bump half the time. You saw that backdrop bump that Randy gave me in the watch along for Patreon. My tailbone was sore for a little bit, but probably not as sore as Chris's after this. Let's take a look at this. Oh, man. That's what happens in these matches too, James. It was during the Rob and Eddie thing with the fan too and other things. Even Razor and Shawn at WrestleMania 10. The ladder, like literally that one that teetered and it kind of fell on Shawn after teetering, that was a great spot, but it wasn't meant to be. The ladder's always going to be some part of it in there. So in this case, Chris tried to kick the ladder a little bit and as he's pushing, but it just didn't go. Or Chris slipped. Maybe Chris... Because look at his grip right here. He really doesn't have, it's hard to grip a belt hanging upside down. So as he's right here, he doesn't have both hands on the belt. Do you notice that? That's usually where you do that, like the Jeff Hardy edge spot where he got speared. He didn't have enough of a grip on there. So maybe Christian was a little bit early pushing the ladder. It should have been kind of like shaking it back and forth, and then Chris grabs it, and then he can teeter up there. And maybe the spot was supposed to be Christian grabbing his leg and him taking a back bump, or a face bump kind of thing. But this part, my God, did he have the ladder's baby 9 months later? He got penetrated pretty good. That's the thing. Let's talk about this too. The impact and the tailbone thing is one thing. What if that literally sliced his skin open? What if he caught the edge of the metal part of that ladder and it just sliced him across? Much like the Bob Holly table bump. That's what potentially could happen. That's rough. Let's call it what it is. It wasn't his tailbone. That ladder went straight up his ass. Let's not kid ourselves.
He was violated.
He was violated. He was basically, he was this... This actually is Chris's butt going into the ladder is a representative or metaphorically representative of the mystery woman's run and the end to it.
Shafted, basically, I think is what you're going at. He
needs a palate cleanser after that because the ladder went right up into his esophagus.
There's, when you were saying, holding onto the belt, for the Edge spot. Well, Edge didn't hold onto the belt though. He held onto the loop that's holding the belt because the belt would just sort of, the poppers on the back of the belt would just split open if it had his full weight on it.
But I want to show you this too. I think in that triple threat ladder match, the TLC match with the tag teams, it wasn't this high. Look at how high the belt is and the hook. You're literally over a height of a cage if you grab that loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is much higher. I think there was a couple matches where they had, I don't want to say Big Show, but one of the taller wrestlers, and they could literally probably reach up and grab the belt. So we got to raise it up a little bit more. I think that adjustment was made throughout the years as wrestlers all became just super huge, even larger than life than the 80s. So this is one of those things. What I think went wrong is that Christian pushed. He didn't know because what he's looking at is Chris got a grip of it somehow. But when Chris did this is just my guess. Remember I said, this is like no man's land. You're one step down from the top rung. You're not really tall enough to grasp the ladder as you're doing this to kind of keep your balance. So you grab this and you're just kind of there. Here comes Christian to push you thinking, oh, Chris grabbed the belt. Now it's time to push him and take the bump. Then on the other hand, the ladder says, I'm going to go into business for myself and stick myself straight up your ass, Chris Jericho, because the ladder actually was watching the previous match and had a really bad taste in its mouth and said ladder's going to be like, I can't allow this pay-per-view to go on after I saw that. These are all pure speculation.
Of course. You've been on ladder matches before, especially in ECW. Now, this might seem like a weird question, the weight of the ladder. Now, WWE uses obviously the more heavy-duty ladders, but you've been using ladders on bouncy rings that were made out of, you would pronounce aluminum, I would pronounce aluminium. These aluminium ladders that weigh nothing, and then anyone moving around this ladder when you're on it, and just the ladder starts boinging up and down. I mean, what's the hairy situation of guests climbing ladders in a ring? Or what can go wrong if you choose the wrong kind of ladder in that sense?
Well, a lot of times with those ladders, you are bouncing around the ring, but WWE, I think that's why they stiffen the rings up as well a little bit. Post-WrestleMania 10, they didn't stiffen, they loosened them up, but not enough to be like what we watched with Ring of Honor when I had the match with Jay or WCW. That can tend to be a little bit sketchy. AEW, I think, has that problem sometimes. The ref has to hold the ladder most times. But what counteracts that is when multiple people, 2, 3, 4 people are climbing that ladder or ladders next to each other, they're pushing down on it. And usually that creates a more stable foundation for the ladder. But I think this thing here is more so just a timing error between Christian and Jericho. And the ladder, I think, based with the fact that the ladder wasn't going to clear no matter what, that maybe Jericho could swing away from the ladder. But then again, the ladder just fell short. And I would say this, usually for the finish, and I don't know if they did it here, you grab the ladder where you can kind of reach it. And then you ever see when people grab the huge ladder that you can really climb up and it's almost eye level with you, you can grab the belt.
Yeah, that's what they did in this match.
Yeah,
a taller ladder was introduced, yeah.
Well, they're the crescendo of not only the, starting out slow, trying to establish, pick up the pace, more impact, use of the ladder, use of a smaller ladder, the less over ladder shug, as TNA Dixie would say. And then the over ladder shug comes into play, and now you can win the match. And also it's visually like, oh my God, he got a huge ladder that he just brought out. I think they pulled it from under the ring, right? It went on forever. That's a great visual for that.
So, backstage segment, Jericho wins, by the way. Backstage segment, Todd Grisham interviews Lita, who says he hopes Shawn Michaels destroys her husband, Kane. Kane comes out and is creepy. And then another backstage segment where Jonathan Coachman interviews Jericho. He is now the 7-time Intercontinental Champion. Edge walks in on crutches and basically says, he's taking the belt back. This is so WWE cliche. You just polish that belt up and keep it warm for me, because we're, the usual thing. And then we get to Kane versus Shawn Michaels. It's just been announced that there's no disqualification. And this is right after the Kane and Lita wedding that was very well remembered, I guess. Very much well remembered. And everything that went involving that, including Lita involving Shawn Michaels in the match. And then Kane does the Pillmanizing. Pillmanizing, for people who don't know it, is where they trapped Shawn's basically head and neck in a steel folding chair, and then Kane stomps on the legs and Shawn took a blood capsule and, his throat was injured in story. And he came back in time for Unforgiven 2004, thank goodness.
Actually, the original one is the ring bell from Savage to Steamboat going into WrestleMania 3 where Steamboat couldn't breathe.
Can you do an impression of Ricky Steamboat doing an interview after that?
Hey, I'm fine, everybody. It's just a little bit of a flesh wound. Thank you. I'll see you at WrestleMania 3.
No, he didn't do that. He went something like,
Oh, he did. He did an. He
like,
did an.
I'm coming for you now, like that.
I don't know what's going on, everybody. I just became Johnny Ace. See you there, Savage. Got a job for life. We'll be bringing him up later.
He was still flag bearing for the sheepherd at that point.
He will
probably not even that.
We'll be bringing Johnny up later.
Yes, we certainly will be. But Kane versus Shawn Michaels, your opinions on this match?
Very good match. I was really seeing Glenn Kane reinvent himself in so many different iterations with and now without the mask. Because you figure after the mask goes and the mystery and the mystique, he has just as much. And by the way, See No Evil, that's why all this stuff happened as well. See No Evil had debuted and May 19th, I believe, was the date and all that stuff. So that changed Glenn's look because he was Jacob Goodnight with the shaved head and everything. So I think they coincided with what they were doing with unmasking him and giving him a new look. Excellent match. I'm looking at this and I'm just like, when you got a guy Glenn size against an incredible athlete like Shawn Michaels, and he can hang and do stuff and looks every bit as athletic as Shawn, it is really a good thing to watch. Wrestlers get so like underestimated, especially ones his size, Taker size. I talk about Big Show and a lot of other giants in wrestling that can do stuff that professional athletes can't do, football players and other people. I love the storyline advancement. This is the perfect wrestling match for a few different reasons. Number one, we have an alternative storyline going into this with Kane and Lita, with her marrying him but hating him at the same time, wanting Shawn Michaels and everybody to beat him up. So he's already got like a mole in his own family that wants to see him fail. You know what I mean? Somebody double agent type thing. Then the heat on Shawn. Then Shawn has a reason to want to fight Kane in a no DQ match. But then in the end, Lita cost Glenn the title, or not the title, the match, cost Kane the match. Shawn goes over, gets his retribution. Kane and Lita go off and continue their storyline. Everybody wins in the end.
Would Kane or Glenn get intimidated in this part of his career going up one-on-one against someone like Shawn Michaels?
Absolutely not. Maybe in the very beginning, post Isaac Yankem debut of Kane, working the angle with Taker, sink or swim after the Isaac Yankem thing. This Kane character was either it's going to work or you're gone. I can see him and then working. It never showed on camera, maybe because the mask helped too. You don't have to worry about looking nervous. But even wrestling people like, he wrestled everybody during that Attitude Era, and then he wrestled everybody again when he took up with Rob before he turned. And then after that, I think people would be more intimidated to work Glenn to think, I got to keep up with this guy. I can imagine the Attitude Era would be the time where Glenn was like, every match was his career. Every match was either, sink or swim.
I always think because Kane was my absolute favorite because it was like a year or two when I stopped watching wrestling in the 90s and I got back in like late 97, early 98, and Kane was my guy. Absolutely. And then they kept changing Kane and Kane. They changed him in 2000, they changed him in 2002. And the first iteration will always be the greatest, of course. But why do people underappreciate Kane so much? Because I think, dirt sheet writers and stuff, oh, Kane was this, Kane was that. He would work rate. They used the word work rate, to describe Kane. I wouldn't appreciate him as much as someone like The Undertaker. Whereas I'm sure you would say Glenn was every bit as good as The Undertaker.
I would agree with that. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And as a matter of fact, Glenn in some ways could usurp Taker as a character because Glenn had a lot more range to do the comedy things a little bit and do other things. It wasn't so much comedy, but it just was the Hogan promo. Remember where he did the Canaanites and all that stuff? Glenn's character had more of a range. Taker had to be very stoic, very serious all the time because he was basically, it worked for him. It keeps him over. He's a legend to today. But yeah, Glenn, and it may be because he was brought in as Undertaker's brother, it's always that Marty Jannetty little brother syndrome type thing that people are indoctrinated with throughout generations and eras. But I would say, and I'm not even speaking out of turn, this isn't even controversial, Glenn Jacobs is one of the best workers that ever lived. one of the best workers and one of the most incredible athletes to ever get into professional wrestling. We've been so spoiled of 300-pound guys that can jump off the top rope, that can do all these moves, that can run ropes, that are not just, we're so thinking like everybody is like a great Khali and very one-dimensional and very plotting. But how many Big Show, Kane, Undertaker, who else? I mean, tons of guys. Well, in this era, Drew McIntyre and Damian Priest are monsters. This is where everybody just kind of, they have an appreciation for them now, but watching them, I always said, my God. And then you factor in, the presentation, the fire pyro, the outfits, the masks, everything. But Glenn had to have it in him to cut the promos, to be Kane, do the dog head tilt, do all these different things. That wasn't people telling Glenn Jacobs, oh, when this happens, tilt your head like a dog. When this happens, do this. All that stuff was Glenn. And I would say, too, the original Kane with the black and the red split, kind of like 45-degree angle cut, and the full one sleeve, and then makes his other arm look even bigger, was great. I did not like the Kane that came out with the metal helmet, the autopsy scar outfit. It looked like it was muted and watered down and not him. OG Attitude Kane is forever going to be the best Kane.
I'm such a Kane purist. I didn't like when he had the vest in 2000. And then when he had like the mask with, his mouth cut out, and then all of a sudden he was dating Terry Runnels and stuff.
Yeah.
At one point in 2002, before he was unmasked completely, it's like, you're getting so... Right, we talked last week.
They had a cape for him, too, at one point in the early renditions of the draw. It looked awful.
That did debut. It was gotten rid of before TV, but there is photos of him walking to the ring in, I think, Madison Square Garden with him wearing it.
It made him look smaller. Like that, like I just said, that one sleeve, but the other thing is arm. I mean, he's a big dude no matter what. He was a real 300 to 320-pound dude that was a good 6'7", 6'8". So, but we get spoiled just to cap off what I'm going to say, we get so spoiled as wrestling fans and even fellow wrestlers who don't look at it for what it is. And when a casual fan or somebody it's the airport walk, as I always say with Vince McMahon. That's the real true scope that dude's that size. But I love to see somebody jump off the top rope, clothesline somebody, and do a parkour roll and can come up to their feet at any size.
I think in the future we could do an entire episode on Kane, so I won't talk too much about, the unmasking and the whole story about that and other things as well.
Now he tried to kill me.
Was there anything that was so... Because it's like Kane, like so many others, that I guess he didn't complain very much. He wasn't that big in the politicking. He would just do whatever was asked of him. Was there anything so stupid that even he said no? That you were aware of?
I think Katie Vick, he ever wanted to say no, may have said no with questions. I know Hunter didn't even want it. This was the I don't know, what do you call it? What's the thing when you do certain things with dead bodies? Necromancia?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, basically that was the brain of Vince McMahon that wanted to see somebody mount somebody inside a coffin, and then I screwed your brains out. Throw it in.
Was this also the same brain that got you to dress up as the Mystery Woman? I've got a feeling that
it's the same era. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. For all I knew, that if the Mystery Woman survived, the Mystery Woman would have been laying in that casket. I would have been looking up and be like, there's a dude mounting me right now.
Oh, future episode, everybody. Aha. We've got to keep doing that as well, because we didn't do any last week.
Not a future episode of me in a casket getting mounted by Triple H.
Oh, God, no. No. Although with the advances in AI thumbnailing these days, which I don't use. You shut
your damn mouth. Don't get anybody any ideas.
Okay, then. But if any fans out there get that idea, then send it. I won't tell you the email. Right, well, I'm going to save a load of Kane questions for a future episode. Take a drink. I know, but there's so many, from the Katie Vick to the unmasking to everything else in between, that he deserves his own episode. Next up, a vignette just about Mr. Benjamin Shaelton, as Hulk Hogan would call him. Hype video. I suppose this might be a bit of a quick answer, I suppose, but where does Shaelton Benjamin lie in the pantheon of most underutilized talent.
Well, some people have him number one. If you want to try to group other people, he's in the top three. He's still the most underutilized guy in AEW. I think the whole group is Bobby, him, MVP. But Shaelton is somebody that he's a dude almost, it doesn't hurt the business, but Shaelton makes it look so easy. He makes everything he does look so easy that people will get hurt trying to, even the boys, trying to imitate him. Even that, like, was that the WrestleMania Money in the Bank ladder match of WrestleMania 25 in Detroit, where he took the ladder bump forward and just took a bump through?
If it was the first one, I thought that was like 2006. It would have been like 22 or 23.
But he took.
I remember he was in the first
23
one.
is Detroit. 23 is Detroit. 22 is Chicago. 23 is Detroit. But anytime there was a Money in Bank in those years, Shaelton always stood out. Shaelton always stood out. Like even more so than like when the Hardys were involved in that. You know, because I think there was one where Jeff did a leg drop on Edge and they were both taken out. That was the one. Punk one, I think, in Detroit. That was him, Fit. I think Shaelton was in that. If not, he was in a bunch of them. WrestleMania 23, Detroit, Michigan.
I think, because Shaelton Benjamin was not in that one. He was in what he won the year before.
Oh, Chicago 22. That's Flair was in that one as well.
Yeah. Bobby Lashley, Finlay, Matt Hardy, Ric Flair, Shaelton Benjamin, and Rob Van Dam was the winner. So what? I don't know. I mean, it's so easy to say, why doesn't anybody see anything in so-and-so? But he seemed to have like a year run where he was like the next guy to be elevated on WWE Raw. And then I guess fans like me and people who like to speculate all of a sudden look at it and go, Triple H was on Raw. And there seemed to be almost a theme of anybody who seemed to possibly be able to be elevated to the main event all of a sudden got their push halted for reasons unknown.
And I think he worked Hunter during that time, right?
Yeah, he lost as well. Shawn Michaels as well, the famous one with the super kick.
That's what I was about to say. He was put in a position to play. He was in the Spirit Squad position where they were just solely existed to put those guys over. That's the impression I got too. Think about it. You had that. Then you had him. I don't know the timeline of when they put him with his mama, which I thought
2006 or so.
Okay,
that could have been entertaining. The actress hated that apparently. Yeah,
but she played her part great, and I think there could have been a lot of legs with that if they handled it the right way. Then he was in ECW as the gold standard. I remember I wrestled him on ECW. He's the one that ended my big winning streak in ECW when I came back after the throat surgery and everything. They even said to me, they go, "Hey, we're just going to give you 2 to 3 wins, and then you can go back to doing jobs." I was like, "Well, at least you wrote it that far in advance, as opposed to other things." But for me to wrestle Shaelton, and we came up with a cool finish where I did something. He rolled up and hit me with that flatliner. Shelton's man. We had some good matches. We had a good match in England for Heat. That was one of my favorite matches up on YouTube. I think it's part of that compilation that we always talk about, the Stevie Knight Heat one. But incredible worker, now in his 50s. Like, looking, maybe you know what his curse is? For some reason, he makes insecure people look and feel less than him, and he must be shut down and stopped. Do you get that feeling? He's too good.
I saw him last year. I didn't speak to him, but I saw him. I think he was in the same bar as me, and he was still huge. Because he's a tall dude as well. I think he's like deceptively big. And just moves. Also, he'd be very insulted you say he was in his 50s. He's a mere 49 at this point. But
you've already beat me up, Shaelton. We don't need to do it anymore. So that's it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's just like, well, it's all there, and for some reason, for years, people. He even went. Didn't he go to Japan for years, and then came back to WWE, and then he was relegated to main event for years, pretty much, and then they did the Hurt Business for a little bit and got rid of him.
Yeah, they did a Hurt Business, which they killed that thing off way too quickly for no good reason. I don't get it. I mean, the Hurt Syndicate in AEW, which I've tried to catch that because I like those guys and I want them to do well. Like you're literally handled. Jesus, you're literally handed like the golden ticket All you gotta do is recreate it. And you don't even do that. You got all the players, and you cannot recapture what they could do. It's creative's fault. It's not their fault.
Let's move on. Backstage segment. Todd Grisham interviews Triple H. Hunter says Randy Orton is a regular guy. He's very good, but just not as good as him.
That sounds like Cornette describing Triple H.
Who said 4 out of 10? Was it Brett?
Yes.
I mean,
3 or 4 out of 10. Yeah, 3 or 4.
That quote will go down in history, man. Next one. This is the buffer match between Shawn Michaels and Kane in the main event. It is, of course, La Resistance versus Tajiri and Rhino. Sylvan sings "Oh Canada." Tag team match featuring these 4 guys. And then I just wrote, there's really nothing to write about. It was just there, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I like the team. La Resistance was really good, but I feel like sometimes this is where we started maybe the too much too quick for people that debut in singles or tag teams, because they won the tag team titles almost immediately, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Too much too soon. Every other path of, you talked about Brett, the Hart Foundations, the health. What's wrong with my Philly accent? The Hart There's more than one. There was more than one Hart Foundation. There was also Owen and Neidhart. So
that was the new foundation.
The new foundation. Well, we had the Hart Foundation as 4 or 5 people too. So yes, my Attitude Era brain was working there for a second. So what I'm saying is Hart Foundation, Bulldogs, Killer Bees, who else? Santana and Martel, Demolition. All these teams, they had to have a ton of locals, a ton of get-over matches or murder hour matches, as you will call them. And then the first angle wouldn't be for the title. It would just be for, these are 2 lower card teams that are fighting. Then you would go mid-card. Then you get your title shot. Why do we not have that path anymore? This was the beginning that I remember of. Start out on top, and then the decline happens right after you lose the belts.
Carlito. He was a famous one, wasn't he?
Oh, with the Cena stuff. He won the U.S. title in week 2 or something?
Nope, first match. First match, he won it.
Oh, okay. Didn't he have Cena on the, or did the match come from an impromptu thing from his talk show? Because I remember that. Or did he just straight up have a match after the vignettes and beat Cena?
I figured he just straight up had the match, and then
you might be right.
Buchanan was involved briefly, and then he was stabbed, Cena, and then all of a sudden Carlito goes to Raw, and guess what happens?
Well, I think later on it's him and Chris Masters against Shawn Michaels and whoever, and ended up losing, right?
Yeah, I think that's about the right thing.
How's it always end up like that? What a coincidence!
Right. Rene Dupree, he's your guy. He's one of your friends, personal, close, long-time friend, as Mean Gene might say. Why was he removed from La Resistance so quickly?
I have no idea. That would be a question if you ever bring your interviews back to ask Rene. I have no idea. I know they brought in Rob Conway, and they made him a 3-person stable for a little bit, and then Rene went off and then ended up back in ECW, correct?
Well, yeah, he was in SmackDown for a while, and then he, for whatever reason, he started tagging with Kenzo Suzuki.
That's true.
Why, I do not know.
That's true. There's a lot to miss with this. I don't know. You're right. It feels like, based on, you asked me about the Ruthless Aggression era in 2004, and it was like the dark ages all over again for WWE. They still had the greatest roster, and they were expanding and getting new people and trying out new talent, and it just seemed like I just throwing everything against the wall to see what sticks, but not sticking with anything at the same time.
Anything to say about the match, if you remember it?
Everybody worked hard, but you're right. And even though we said we never bring it up again, that match that Tomko and I had, I don't think the whole show recovered. It seemed very muted and lower energy. And I think the first match, having guys, like I said last week, so over, all 4 guys were so over and usually further along in the card. Dare I say it, I would have put this tag title match first to get people, warmed up for the show. And I would have canceled the 2B match.
Tyson Tomko versus Mystery Woman, by the way.
Yes, thank you.
One more thing I have to bring up is Tajiri the stiffest guy on the WWE roster at this point?
It sure felt like it when I worked him on Heat. Yeah, it sure felt like it. And he would sandbag anytime you picked him up. He would not jump. He would not do anything. He definitely felt like a lazy wrestler. There's your title.
But he's full emotion and everything like that. And also he's pretty much
full
the smallest
emotion
guy
when
in
he's
the
doing
roster.
his moves.
Mm-hmm.
When he's taking your stuff, sometimes he's not quite there for you. Trust me.
Mm. Did his English get better or worse depending on what you were asking him to do?
Never really talked to him. He acted like he couldn't speak English, but he understood, oh, I win.
I know so many people do it as well, but how does one have a match with somebody who you cannot speak each other's language?
Well, the moves are universal. And if you're the body language of do this and grab you, I'm going to slam you. Or if I say small package or I say reverse, put the foot up, this and that, he could speak enough. And listen, there's urban legend about these Japanese wrestlers. They can speak English a lot better. I walked in on Muda and Shono in WCW, speaking, as you can tell by this episode, speaking way better English than I could ever hope to speak. No Philly accent or anything. And I went, oh, at that point, because at that point it was like very kayfabe to the American wrestlers that these Japanese, they would somehow understand when they could win, but no speak English when they're losing or they got to do something they don't want to do. Johnny Ace smartened me up to that. Stay tuned.
As long as he didn't smart you up to some other things he was up to.
No, we didn't talk about anything like that, so trust me.
Oh, good. I'm going to stick with Tajiri for a minute then. Okay, what's the hardest kick he gave you? I'm assuming it was a kick.
It was on Heat, and he kicked me in the back of the head with his heel. Caught me with it and pinned me off of that. It was supposed to be like a super kick from the back that kind of caught you here. It's not smart. Trust me. Not smart at all. My stupid thing to take it. I should have faced him because that's the way he usually did that, kind of like Savate kick or the front kick. But I caught a back kick in the back of my head, and it knocked me out cold.
Really?
That's on the Stevie Nahi compilation too.
Wow. How long were you out for?
I don't know. I was on top of the ramp before I realized it.
Really?
Yeah.
Did he have to be carried out?
No. I just walked away, I guess, because I took the kick, and the next thing I know, I'm looking at the Titantron, and all I could think of was the Mr. Burns coming out of the forest. Love.
I come in peace.
Yeah. I was in pieces. That was for sure.
Goodness, I bet you were. Crikey.
Hey, do you want to be around? Are you going to still do that match next year with the podcast?
Yeah, I booked Tajiri. Yeah. As my partner, though.
Your first and last match ever.
I guarantee it would be. The one thing about Tajiri that always got me, because I used to watch him in ECW, because we got ECW on TNN here. And it was so far behind broadcast. It was like 6 weeks prior. Same with WCW, actually, on Channel 5. They used to have Worldwide here. And it was 6 weeks behind, like, when it actually happened. They just got the tapes really late. So WCW and ECW were sold or bankrupt, and we were still watching them first-run programming 2 months later, it seemed. But Tajiri's finisher was the Tarantula. Great-looking finisher. It's kind of, I guess, like Bret Hart's figure four leg lock on the post, as in, obviously, it requires help from the opponent. But when he went to WWF at the time, why did he stick with that finisher? Because he could never, ever win with it.
Well, he didn't stick with it. I think in our match, he did it, and then when he let me go, that's when he did the finish after that. It's just an exciting spot there, and it's not stiff at all. That part is fine. So he's not all stiff all the time. But I feel like, I don't know why. I think there's probably... In that point, the rules, the tag ropes, you're not going to submit as you're in the ropes. So think about that. That could be creative liberty or them sticking to a wrestling rule book when it comes in there. Now, is a setup move or is a move that is somewhere in the match where it makes sense? It's an amazing move, and it looks good. And it really does kind of shut down one of the heels in a tag match like here, or shut the heel down for you to kick him for the finish. because he's so torqued up and everything and selling. So I think it's a great move. I don't think WWE, it would work as a finish because you're literally doing it so far away from the center of the ring, kind of like Jericho's walls of shirt Jericho or Lion Tamer is in the middle of the ring when the finish happens. This is a little bit, the translation's not there.
This is just another, I was in Vienna, Austria, a few years ago, just walking through the park, and I saw a poster, and on it was Tajiri. It must have been a wrestling thing, I guess, but I just found it's like, why? Anyway, there you go.
Joey Legend tells me he goes to Austria quite a bit. They must run shows quite often there over the years.
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe not the tent tours, but something similar.
The shows are shows. I'm sure. You know what's funny is today's indies probably work better buildings than back when the actual companies like Otto Wands, CWA, that work the carnivals. They probably have a lot better facilities on an indie level.
They probably do. They probably do as well. I know Alex Wright, from Alex Wright, the German. If you want to know what the Germans are about, pick me and you'll have one hell of a victory, I promise. I memorized that from
That's
WCW
a dude who changed his look completely. I saw an interview.
He did that great as well, and they did nothing with him.
Berlin.
Yeah.
He was a
really good interview as well.
Very dark heel, man. It was really good stuff. But he kept that shaved head look and the facial hair. I think he still has that. I'm not sure.
Well, he's just bald now, but yeah.
But it worked for him. If you didn't know any better, you would never, unless they said this was Alex Wright, you wouldn't know that it was Alex Wright. Actually, I don't know if he was when he did it in 99 or 2000, right?
99.
Do you think that was a gimmick that played off of the Matrix? Because he looked just like Cypher in the Matrix, the one that turned his back on everybody.
There was a strong Third Reich type element to it, or at least
it's that too, I guess. I was trying to say the Matrix.
I was figuring more stormtroopery kind of thing.
I was trying to keep it a little more family friendly and not the the nightmares of past history. Let's go with the Matrix.
Hey, I know this has got nothing to do with anything, but I asked Alex, hey, why weren't you in the WWF? I'm sure you've been asked that, and he was like, I was on a Turner Broadcasting contract, not a WCW one. So I got paid for 3 years.
Oh, good for him. Good for him.
Yeah. He was making good money as well, so good for him. He went back to Germany and loved his life.
Good for him.
Okay, so we're going to get to the main event now, and it is Randy Orton, who is the World Heavyweight Champion on WWE Raw's end of things, versus Triple H. Randy Orton is the champion, of course, beating Chris Benoit at SummerSlam the month before. Not to give too much away, Stevie, but Randy Orton lost it after 1 month.
Wow.
There you go.
There you go. Win the title right away, and then he didn't do the decline. His career stayed pretty steady over 20 years since.
We can talk about the match obviously in a second, but I mean, just looking at that from a booking standpoint, why?
I don't know. I maybe just because he was the youngest world champion and they wanted to get that and do the first ever type thing for him. And maybe that was the beginning of you won the belt, so now you're instantly over. Kind of what they do now with the new call-ups from NXT. Only Randy had a lot more upside and a lot more potential and could have really dominated as a cocky young champion. Like literally too much too soon on TV. And what comes with that, with the evolution stuff and everything, and then this, I have no idea. But I'll tell you what, this, like you said, he loses the title very quickly, much too quickly. But what do they do each and every time with Randy Orton? They give him a new gimmick, a new storyline, a new person to work off of. The Legend Killer thing, how many years and how many people did they feed to him to do that? So he actually got more over after a short title reign.
I was watching this match lasted 25 minutes, give or take, just shy of 25 minutes. I mean, apart from the fact that it's a huge responsibility for someone who is, I guess, 24 at this time, and once again, the youngest world champion in WWE history. Just as a fan watching it, I remember back in 2004 and thinking, is this too soon? Because he still looked really fresh-faced and young and everything. My impression at the time, I remember thinking it's too soon for him. What did you think?
Well, in retrospect, it wasn't a mistake because he carried the ball on everything he did. But initially, I really do think it was trying to check a box for being one of the youngest, if not the youngest world champion in WWE history, and trying to anything after that, him starting on that and knowing that he's somehow still connected to Triple H, which puts him in favor with Vince as well, that creatively he's always going to have something to do to keep himself over. So honestly, I don't know why it was just that, and then the title's off him so quickly. I figured they would have him carry that into Survivor Series, Rumble, maybe even WrestleMania, and try to do something with him.
I've got a theory. I had a theory that they wanted Randy Orton to be the youngest champion because Brock Lesnar had just left, and he was the youngest champion just prior.
Well, there you go. Yeah, that's probably more of a thing to wipe out Brock because he left there to go play football after the WrestleMania 20 fiasco.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like 5 months earlier. Yeah. I think he went to Japan a bit as well.
They're trying to erase whoever and put the stuff on Randy, and maybe it was just for that 1 month or 2 months, and you're, But I think there's also, like I said, the thing about the La Resistance. It seems like the booking and the creative is now reversed. That the pinnacle and the climax happen when you're debuting, and then for most people, the decline happens that you can never get back there, or at least it's never the same.
We're going to talk about your personal matches with Randy Orton over the years, especially because we watched his debut Raw match, singles match in WWE Raw in 2002. That was for the Patreon exclusive. Links in the description, I'm sure. And if it isn't, I really need to put it in. But what do you think of this match overall? Because, once again, as a fan, I remember in 2004... and then watched it again last week, and I remember it being very plodding compared to what would have happened, I guess, even 2 years earlier. Was there an edict handed down at some point around 2003, 2004 that we've got to slow things down and, bring it back old school a bit more?
No, there wasn't as per se. I mean, obviously, after the Right to Censor, during the Right to Censor era, we tried to slow down the violence and not have the Crash TV and protect the talent from, weapons of the Attitude Era and the violence of that. But my estimation, watching this back and watching it at the time, you have similar styles. It's a clash of the same exact style. In other words, Randy is a very plodding, kind of almost just chain wrestling. That headlock looks awesome, but if you put the headlock on somebody that's got the same exact gears as you, it looks slow and plodding. And Triple H, even during comebacks, it's really not much faster than the other stuff that he does. So I've said it before, clash of different styles is one thing. Sometimes what's even worse is the same styles getting in the ring, two huge monsters, never really works out. We talked about that before. This is the same example of that. Also, I think Triple H personally wanted to have a long, classic NWA style pro wrestling main event. Nothing wrong with that in theory, but not the right environment or setting for that. And also, I would say a Randy Orton versus a Jeff Hardy, or a Triple H versus Jeff Hardy, or smaller wrestlers that will take to the air. Now you have a reason to ground this person. That's the slow plodding thing. Then when Jeff gets loose, here comes the excitement. That's a symbiotic relationship between different styles in a wrestling match. That's why I think they're not both guys are excellent workers, but if they're not presented the right way, it's going to be boring, plodding, and predicated.
I obviously it didn't help that the entire pay-per-view that the crowd was quiet apart from the opener.
You're going to keep blaming it on me?
No, I'm not. I'm actually blaming it on Victoria and Trish. Because the crowd didn't react to that either. They didn't really react to the tag match. I mean, they did a bit, but then they saw stars and then they sort of moved on, I guess.
You know what's funny about this? We got to remind everybody about part one. Just set the table, the environment, and everything. This is Portland, Oregon, that has not seen a wrestling show, much less a pay-per-view from WWE, in their town for quite some time.
A decade at least.
And they're still sitting on their hands.
Mm-hmm.
That's how bad the show was perceived.
Now, we've got to talk about... In fact, just before we do, Triple H, right? He always says that Ric Flair was his favourite wrestler as a kid. He even did the blonde hair and the whole bit, like he on the indies before he got to WCW. And even when he was in WCW for a bit as well. He wrestles nothing like Flair. Flair is all... Yeah, fine, you know what's coming... And for Flair, that's really charming, and everyone gets into it, and every match is quote-unquote the same, but it really isn't. But you know all the high spots, I guess. Triple H tries to emulate Flair. He does nothing like Flair. There's, never any, tons of movement. It's always grind down kind of thing. And I'm sure he's a fan of Harley Race as well. But Harley Race was far more entertaining than Triple H.
Yeah, and I would say, this is a compliment to Hunter, but it doesn't translate to excitement. Triple H is a much more rounded worker than Flair, and in some ways Harley Race. He can work different styles and do things. I was going to say, yeah, he reminds me a lot more of Harley Race than Ric Flair, but even so, something about Harley just made you want to watch. I don't know what, why? Harley reminds me of Terry Funk, or Terry reminds me of Harley. There's something about that, I guess the devil may care type of wild man, and kind of Harley Race carried that aura, legitimate tough guy, but when he threw a left, and maybe it has something to do with the southpaws, when they throw punches, it looks like they're usually are kind of, catching you with it. But Hunter, excellent worker, still one of the greatest and most safest workers you'll ever be in the ring with. But I said it time and time again, without the machine to take care of him creatively and give him the smoke and mirrors, he can be just like any other generic creative wrestler.
Mm-hmm. Harley Race as well is... I don't think people really realize just how goofy he was in the ring sometimes. He did some
Flair
goofy
copied
stuff.
his face bumps, right? Flair copied the face plant thing.
But yeah, Harley Race used to do some really goofy stuff. I know everyone he's not my generation, of course, but you look back and some of the ridiculous things he did. He wasn't Dick Slater, but he did some funny movements and whatever that, designed to elicit a laugh.
What about even
which actually
the
Triple H would.
What about the Flair flip over thing? Didn't Harley do that first too? Whip into the corner and
that was
flip
Ray
over?
Stevens, I think he copied.
Well,
off,
there's previous ones to I'm sure Antonio Rocca and other people, even Buddy Rogers probably did stuff. But I'm saying in that era, Harley Race was doing that kind of stuff, but maybe Flair got it from Buddy Rogers.
Yeah, I think the point I'm trying to make is, and maybe you're trying to make as well, is that Triple H was never a dynamic wrestler. There was not tons of movement always happening. It was always very slow and, grinding down kind of thing. And Randy Orton's the same, I guess. Right, so we're going to talk about your personal experiences wrestling Randy Orton. I'm going to surprise you here. On the Patreon, I said you wrestled Randy before you wrestled him live on Raw, when he debuted on the Raw brand in September 2002. And you said, oh yeah, there was a tag team match, Randy Orton, Ron Waterman versus Rico and Stevie Richards. Guess what? There's more. Several more where you wrestled Randy Orton. Stevie Richards and Tommy Dreamer defeats Randy Orton and Rico Constantino twice on house shows. That was in Bangor, Maine and Portland, Maine. And before that, Randy Orton defeats Stevie Richards singles match, Sunday Night Heat dark match, East Rutherford, New Jersey, which you said New Jersey in the Patreon. That's where you got it from, I guess.
Yeah, I mixed up the towns for that, but yeah, that's more. Oh my goodness! Oh, you got me, CTE. But you can't remember. I mean, that's something. It's kind of makes me feel like, wow, I've had a lot of matches, which is really cool that I'm coming out of it somewhat healthy.
Oh my God, I've got one even better now. You've got a victory over Brock Lesnar.
Well, yeah, I mean, Tommy and I wrestled Brock and Shaelton in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
No, Brock and Randy. Brock and Randy.
No, was it Brock and Randy in Chattanooga?
Chattanooga, Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton.
Yeah, that's where Brock belly to belly Dreamer and myself in a 20-foot ring with us up against the ropes, and my legs hit the other ropes across the ring. I didn't know we beat them, though. I assumed we lost.
No, you hold the victory over Brock Lesnar. Well done.
Who pinned who?
It doesn't say that. If only it did.
I pinned Brock.
Yes, hopefully.
I pinned Brock in 2025. Back then, I was probably selling outside, and Dreamer got the pin on Randy. That's my guess. And Brock was Brock was trying to get me back in the ring because I was running from him down the aisleway. That's my prediction, or my guess.
So the point I'm trying to make is you and Randy Orton have been, not excluding Battle Royals, you and Randy Orton have been in at least half a dozen matches together.
We had a blood feud and dark matches.
Well, apparently so. The amount of dark matches that dude had in 2001, dozens and dozens.
But you know what?
Kept taking him on.
Yeah, but that's the Kurt Angle blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
Get him comfortable. That should be every talent from NXT should have 6 months of dark matches. Or other main event or speed or whatever secondary show.
They did that for Brock as well. For months they did it for.
I'm confusing because he teamed up with Shaelton on a lot of dark matches.
OVW as well, yeah.
Especially Minnesota. They got the biggest pop in a dark match in Minnesota for both of them.
Mm.
It was the biggest pop of the night. But of course, the Adrian report, Triple H had the most signs and the biggest reaction.
Also had the biggest quads. For the daily measurements, I'm sure.
Renee still feels the sting of that.
Did he mention that to you recently?
Oh, I mention it to him every day when I send him Bible verses. I want to mention it to him all the time.
So the point I'm making is you've wrestled Randy Orton a lot of times. What does he do? Okay, what was Randy Orton like to wrestle as a rookie? And is that third generation wrestler thing where they just somehow innately know what to do? Is that true in Randy Orton's case?
Yeah, I totally concur with that. You don't know what they're going to do. You can say, oh, I knew he was going to be this, that, and the other thing. I knew that he was going to be a player. I knew he was figured in, and being third generation at that time, you know that these people are going to be given opportunities no matter what. And it's up to him to run with it. And he totally did multiple times over 2 decades in the company. I would say this about Randy. You saw he had it, but it was up to the company to bring it out of him, and patience, which obviously a year's worth of dark matches is patience. Giving them people like me and other people, after all these matches, to give me the first match or one of the first matches to wrestle, prove that they cared about putting them in the right situation to succeed, which should happen to everybody, but it doesn't. I saw too that this dude is like deceptively big, and even back then, like I said, deceptively big, but now he's a monster. He looks like me. He looks like me back then compared to what he is now.
He looked like he ate you.
Yeah. Well, the infection did. He could be Randy Orton, the infection.
I loved that his Titantron actually had him doing that as well.
Oh, I love it too. The Barry O thing. Yeah, I think I probably brought that up to him. But with Randy too, when you're looking at this, and he was doing all that stuff with the headlocks and the chain wrestling and everything. And I remember saying to one of the agents, I was like, what's weird about Randy is, even though he's doing wrestling holds, he has a certain stink and viciousness to when he puts a headlock on. It's almost like he should be a heel. And I go, I don't know how that'll happen or if it's in him, but he has a certain, even when he's shaking hands with the fans on the match we watched on Patreon, he has that evil smirk on his face. He's a natural heel. And I think I saw a little bit of that, but you don't know which way it's going to be. But fundamentally, and how he works, and even how we got along talking about these matches or talking them over, I'm going to ask him about his dad and his grandfather and what it was like and how he was trained and all this stuff. Gave me a little bit of information here and there, but there was a mutual respect because he probably respected me just because I was in the company longer and I was somebody who was going to put him over. And I respected his family for what two of them and the third were about to contribute to the business. And it's pretty cool to get somebody, second generation's easy. Third generation, him and Rocky, that doesn't come along too often. I think today it's a lot more prevalent because the grandchildren are now full-time wrestlers, but back then a third generation was very, very rare.
Well, Finley would be in the company at that time as well. I know he wasn't wrestling, but he was there. He was third generation.
Yeah. He was still dangerous.
Still dangerous.
Unbreaking.
Was last week, a future episode, previous episode, if you want that story about the thumb breaking. Was Randy, okay, even before he was aligned with Triple H on screen or maybe even politically connected, do you think that Randy Orton was already getting treated a bit differently by WWE, WWF office staff? Could you see there's a bit more reverence for him as a rookie than maybe other people would get?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Jim Ross introduction tells you all you needed to know about what the office thought. They were there to give him every opportunity to succeed. And they wanted that because Vince was still, and continues if he was here today, where, with the company, he has reverence for the history of the multi-generations of wrestlers in WWF, WWE.
Wrestlers within the business now and have been saying for a long time that Randy Orton is about as good as it gets. I don't think fans would see it the same way, but obviously the fans are not wrestling Randy Orton. They're not feeling him and just basically, his timing and everything else. They'll just sort of see an end product and maybe less flips than they prefer, I guess. Why do guys in the business have so much reverence for Randy Orton's skills, and what does he do better than anybody else?
I would say the reverence and the affinity for what Randy does and the appreciation for it. You have to look at somebody like William Regal and put Randy Orton in that same category of nuance and detail. The details do matter. And of course, now Randy, over the course of years and decades, he has his 5 moves of doom. He has the moves he does that gets the fans into it. He's got the thing where he does, hopefully not blowing anything out, but he hits the power slam or hits other moves and boom, boom for the RKO. And now, if it's not going to be the RKO or he pulls the RKO out, he's got the punt kick from the Legend Killer days. He has now the set moves where casual fans and the fans that want to do the sing-alongs and react to the thing, they know what his 5 or 6 things are now. But before that, they're missing a whole lot that the diehards, the fellow wrestlers, the people that really pay attention, that the best parts of a Randy Orton match are the ones where you need to pay attention. This stuff at the end is just like, that's like candy or dessert. But man, the 6 or 7 course meal that Randy serves up in each and every match, and you can watch and rewind and pause and slow down and take a pen and act like John Madden and draw around. That's why we appreciate it. Also, combined with all that, he's safe. His stuff looks like it kills you, but it doesn't. Right there, one of the greatest workers to ever live. And he's not even done yet. Even after a back surgery, he's as good as he's ever been.
Yeah, he's already declared he's going to wrestle till the wheels fall off, and he's feeling good again. So
Dude,
good for him.
They might never fall off. You would expect him to fall off after like the shoulder and the rotator cuff and the other stuff, and now the back. Good Lord, man. He is a freak. Like, I put it in for physicality or the way he looks and how he can go at such, not an advanced age, but an advanced number of years in his career. Dude, he's every bit as much of a genetic freak as Brock Lesnar in a lot of ways to me.
Couple more things. We're going to go back to the match again briefly at the end, so don't let me forget. But Randy Orton's attitude in the 2000s. How could we not mention Randy Orton, the rookie Randy Orton, without a story or two about some of the fun things he got up to backstage that we can say?
I've never seen any of this. I've heard the stories, and when I refer to the hotel room being trashed or urinal being ripped out, I'm basing that off Cody Rhodes stories. Cody traveled with him because Cody knows about, and that was kind of like down the line after this, that Cody was in the company. So he's always been incredibly respectful to me. I remember, by the way, it was probably the first or second time with Heidenreich. I'm laying face down on a massage table and I can't feel my feet. I can feel my legs, but for some reason my feet were numb, and I'm just laying there, and I got an ice pack on the back of my neck, and I'm just laying there with my face down. Randy comes up, he gives me a little squeeze on the butt or whatever. And he goes, "Hey, Stevie, how you feeling?" And I'm just like, "Randy, this company's trying to kill me." Because Dreamer walked by. I wasn't thinking it, but Dreamer's like, "They're trying to kill you, wacko," and just walks away. So I'm laying there, And he came into the room. There's a little pinch to let me know he's there. And I'm like, dude, I don't know what to do, man. These people are trying to kill me or whatever. He goes, I'm going to tell you what I noticed. He goes, you have an incredibly good heart and you have a strong spirit. And he goes, I appreciate that. And he goes, this business and this company needs more people like you. And then I was like, are you carrying a urinal under your arm? No, that part's not true. So if he rips a urinal out, he gets good perspective. No, but those were very kind words during the entitled, cocky, arrogant Randy Orton era that people perceived. But I saw Randy for somebody that really did always have maybe a good heart, but just needed to grow up. And of course, way too much, way too soon. And way too, how can I say, protected. And then he became entitled off of that. That's my viewpoint. But as always with wrestlers, by the way, this goes for Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Ric Flair, other people, and anybody else in between. One-on-one, man, the best to kind of like to be around. In a group, they kind of like show off. And Randy could have been that way when he got together with Jindrak or whoever his travel buddies were, but he never treated me with any kind of disrespect, arrogance, entitlement, or treated me like I was, quote, a jobber or a lower card guy.
I'm very happy to hear it as well. In later years, everybody says the same thing. That Randy Orton came from a bit of a, was anger management and a bit of a terror to really serious. And like, maybe when he got married, I don't know. And just completely
maybe even considered to be at one point, or maybe currently a locker room leader.
Yeah,
that quells that kind of behavior, and that to me, that's great because he sees both sides of it, so he can go up to a talent that's maybe speaking or acting out of turn and say, "Hey, man, I get it. I've done it. I was the worst offender, but I'm here to tell you, you need to stop it. It's not a good road to go around. Make it easy on yourself." That's a great resource to have around.
We're going to go back to Unforgiven 2004 very briefly. We've got to talk about the finish. Triple H reverses an RKO and shoves Randy into the referee, and then the RKO is hit, but no ref to count, leading to Ric Flair and Batista running in. Orton outsmarts them both. I think he does it a couple of times, actually. He's, one of those things where I know you'll say it's the same with Cody Rhodes and so many other baby faces. They have no friends, apparently, to, counteract all this stuff. Then Jonathan Coachman runs in on the main event, no less, in a referee shirt. This went completely unexplained because nobody had told Eric Bischoff, who was the Raw GM at the time, he was required in the main event. And by the time he was reached, he was already 2 hours away from the building. He'd already filmed his segment and then left. So Coach was just the ref, and then he did the count, and then Triple H wins the title and ends Randy Orton's 4 glorious weeks as World Heavyweight Champion, I guess. I don't think he'd win the belt for quite a few years afterwards again, but maybe my memory's failing me there.
Well, because they did the Legend Killer gimmick after that, so you didn't need a belt. That's my guess.
So, let's go to the post-show. I'm going to give you some news, some random news, and I'm just time-coding this at the same time. Bear with me.
Wait, are you saying Triple H won?
Yes,
wow,
Triple H won.
Weird.
Would you believe?
I'm glad he finally pulled one out. I mean, it's good for him.
Yeah.
Hey, how much heat do you think Bischoff had for leaving the building?
I guess at that point, you probably didn't care.
Probably
about your time, you probably wouldn't care. Yeah,
well, I wonder how long after that. I'm just saying, though, with the way these people operate, do you think the Austin segment with dumping him in the dumpster was not long after this?
It was over a year after.
They waited.
Oh, yeah.
Gave him a false sense of security. No heat, brother.
Oh, you're absolutely fine. Hey, well, it wasn't his fault, I guess.
You got a job for life here, Eric. What are you talking about?
We'll do the news following this. It's funny you said Triple H pulling one out, and I thought, well, John Laurinaitis is coming up soon. So, post-show news from 2004, Unforgiven 2004 September. So, Gene Okerlund underwent a kidney transplant. Steve Williams, Dr. Death, underwent a 7-hour procedure to remove his voice box after being diagnosed with throat cancer. He would live till 2009. He had some terrible health problems in his later life. John Cena headed off to Australia to do the WWE Films production of The Marine. Jamie Noble.
Story about that for a clip.
Future episode. I'm writing it down. The Marine. Right, okay. Writing that one down. Jamie Noble was fired. I had no memory of him being fired, and then he was hired back 1 year later. WWE, or insiders, you know how it goes, claimed that Noble had discipline problems. Carmella de Cesar was arrested. She was in the Diva search. Misdemeanor assault after a skirmish in a nightclub. Kurt Angle and Eddie Guerrero had a backstage issue at the WWE SmackDown tapings a week after this, which was, obviously you weren't there for it, but a famous backstage fight. Elsewhere on SmackDown, Gangrel and Viscera were brought back to align with JBL, sort of bringing back people from The Undertaker's past in his feud with The Undertaker. Gangrel was kept on the books for a year, paid, and never used after this. And then Viscera was for several years, including being the world's largest love machine and Big Daddy V.
Let me interject with this. This was around the time they brought him back, and they made the Circle of Fire too small, and Gangrel got burned. He got burned.
Did he?
Yes. I believe it was during this time, and they might have kept him on the books for that reason. They did not make the circle coming out under the stage big enough, and it ended up catching them.
Is WWE allergic to rehearsals?
I'm not sure. I would assume they would have rehearsed that, but maybe the ring was bigger, and they got the good take during the rehearsal. I mean, look it up if you can, but I remember really vividly that, not as vividly as Gangrel, that the fire caught him or ended up getting him. And he did stay on the payroll for a while after that.
Well, that's a good little tidbit for you there, everybody. And me, because I'm writing a script that will include that information. And I'll tell you about it afterwards. This is very timely. Real Pro Wrestling is set to debut. Essentially, it's the original version of Hulk Hogan's Real American Wrestling Today. That old one featured Daniel Cormier, in fact. TNA News, it's reported that Raven and Conan were punished by TNA bookers Jeff Jarrett and Dutch Mantell for complaining directly to Dixie Carter about their lack of push. So, Jeff Jarrett and Dutch Mantell just stopped using them as much because no one likes a complainer. Jim Barnett...
How dare you want to get more of a push, and now how dare you accuse us of not pushing you, and now, we're not going to push you.
Yeah, the point was that they went straight to Dixie, which... I know for a fact Dutch hated that people would complain to Dixie.
Chain of command. There is a chain of command with this stuff. And you shoot your shot and go to Vince, you go to Dixie. It's a 50-50 chance. But the 50% where it doesn't work out might be the 100% end of your career.
Jim Barnett, my boy. He died September 27th, 2004. One of the most pivotal figures in wrestling in the 20th century. Now, there's one more bit of news that I want to bring up to you because you wrestled this chap a couple of times on, I think, Jacked 2000, around that time. The big boss man, Ray Traylor, passes away September 22nd, 2004, age 41, of a heart attack at his home in Dallas, Georgia, while he was sat on his sofa. Yes, I've written it here, actually. Ray Traylor and yourself wrestled a few times on Jacked, WWF Jacked in 2000, Pittsburgh and British Columbia, Canada. I don't know, not to sound like Conrad Thompson, I understand that, but I don't know when we're going to be able to talk about Boss Man again, but he was always one of my sleeper favourites during the Attitude Era, and sort of somebody who was a bit underappreciated. I guess, one, your memories of Boss Man, and two, what was Boss Man like to wrestle, especially as a big man that maybe wasn't even considered a big man in WWF, I guess, at the time?
Yeah, he was amazing to work. And once again, I put him in the same category as Kane, Taker, Big Show, other big guys that could work and that are light at the same time. You know what I said before, if a guy that big doesn't hurt you and can work light, nobody has an excuse. And Boss Man's definitely one of those people, almost like so cat-like quick. I had to figure out a way to catch up with him and keep up with him. Very, very good. In one of those matches, I dressed as the Big Boss Man.
Did you?
Yeah. One of those matches, that's when I was doing the parodies. So we might have to do a watch along of that match. It is up on YouTube. I think one was Jacked and one was Metal. I'm not sure. It could be both.
What was the difference? Jacked. Was there any difference between the two?
None whatsoever. It's like
were they the same shows? And they were like repackaged or something?
I think they repackaged Jacked to Metal. I'm not sure. Or there were two separate shows. I'm not sure. but really a great pleasure to wrestle him. Really good. And obviously he got most of the match and everything. It was more of an enhancement thing, but a lot of fun to wrestle. And then obviously the next paragraph in the notes you're talking about, growing up and watching him as Big Bubba Rogers from a bodyguard, then to a wrestler, then becoming the big boss man, the Twin Towers, all that stuff in WWF, and then losing the weight and coming back. Then he went to WCW as Big Bubba again. Then he came back for a second run in the corporate ministry, I think, with Vince.
It's more complicated than that. So
yeah,
he went from...
seems like a back and forth almost.
Yeah, so NWA, he was in UWF briefly as well, but NWA's Big Bubba with the Midnight Express, then the Twin Towers, and then he was a single for a couple of years. He was IC title picture with Mr. Perfect and Bobby Heenan's family. Then he went back to WCW as the Boss, then the Man, then the Guardian Angel, which ended up prompting a lawsuit from the Guardian Angels, who were a group. Did they help homeless people? Am I right in saying?
Curtis, no. They were patrolling the subways as like a neighborhood watch, or they thought they were vigilantes in New York City during all the crime and the subways. Curtis Siwa, I can't pronounce his name. He actually recently ran for mayor in New York City not too long ago. He was the founder, and I think they were trying to get him in WCW, and then the lawsuit happened and they called him either the Guardian or just the Angel, right?
Something like... No, I think he went back to Big Bubba Rogers or Big Bubba or Bubba, so whatever it was. And he was there. He was in the NWO. People forget that Big Bubba was in the NWO for a while as well. For
you know why they forget? Drive. You know why they forget? Because when he came back into WWF and he was Vince McMahon's bodyguard as Vince was in the wheelchair, he erased all that and he became even more over as a heel until, the two cage matches with Taker and Al Snow. I mean, those were pretty bad.
Hey, do you know how they brought Bossman back? Is they didn't unmask him for weeks. He had a balaclava on for weeks before they actually revealed it was Bossman again. But yeah, he lost a ton of weight. He was really good. Here's a question for you, right? You'll remember Bossman or Big Bubba from the NWA. You were more of an NWA fan than WWF at the time. Now, I know wrestling legends turned up in Eastern and Extreme Championship Wrestling, but they were always like on the downside of their career. And, they probably weren't going to get another major run for the most part. I mean, some would, some wouldn't. But then you're back in the WWF, and then you're wrestling, a wrestling legend like Bossman, who is still at the prime of his career, I guess. But like you as a historian will know how big of a deal he's been for years. I mean, is that the kind of thing that you, at this point in 2000, would it be in the back of your mind when you're wrestling this guy? Like, I cannot believe I'm wrestling this dude who's, Midnight Express.
Mm-hmm. 150 million %. Yes, I was quite aware, and I told him, and that might have been like something to where he was always very cool to me. After that, I talked about the Shawn Michaels story that he became not cool with me after I told him, you're the reason I got into the business. But with him, I was talking about what it was like to go from he was the original Diesel blueprint, by the way, bodyguard to wrestler. He learned the business from Cornette and the Midnight Express by watching as the bodyguard and only doing like one, maybe two things that mattered with that. And for somebody as they go on in their career and take more bumps, to get in better shape and their work improves rather than slowing down, he sped up. That's insane. He had an inverted career where he got better. And you had to be like, as a 20-something-year-old kid who probably went way too fast, at that time, to say, oh my God, I gotta keep up with him. Slow it down, Ray. Slow down. He was really, really great to work and so underrated. Man, that's in this show, it's probably ad nauseum or kind of we say it way too much, but it can't be discounted. Like Kane and Big Boss Man and other people, severely underrated for what they were as wrestlers. Like, you don't appreciate that they could do really anything with guys half their size. Really great stuff. Yeah, I was nervous. So, and I told him as much. And he probably had a little fun with me, but not in a mean way. Just a little fun with me because I was so nervous.
I'm going to ask you one more question about Ray in a second, but I just want to make mention of, like, people forget this. After Big Bubba was kicked out of the NWO before he went back to the WWF, he very briefly had a feud with Hulk Hogan for like a week or two. But the thing is, he cut an interview that was so good. There were two people in WCW who seemed to do the same thing. Like, even though they were considered 80s WWF guys, when given even the tiny sliver of an opportunity to get over, they did. One was Ray Traylor as Big Bubba against Hulk Hogan. He engendered so much sympathy. People really thought he could actually beat Hogan for a week. The other one was Jim Duggan, who people really thought, my God, he could beat Bill Goldberg. And these dudes just know what they're doing. And, like, Jim Duggan's another one who I don't. Yeah, he does nothing, basically, apart from brawl. But, like, man, between him and Ray, Big Bubba, or whatever name you want to call him, man, they knew what they were doing. And they didn't get enough opportunity, I guess. Ray Traylor, who was your favourite character of Ray Traylor's? Was it Boss Man? Was it the Keen version? Was it Big Bubba? Was it the later Boss Man? Was it the Guardian Angel?
I would have to say the first babyface turn of Big Boss Man and why he would. I think I'd do it. $1 Million Man and Jake Roberts or something at the time. I'm not sure. It was a $1 Million Man thing, and he said, "I don't want to. I don't want your money. I'm all about the law," or something. And that was the beginning of his babyface turn. That babyface run of Boss Man was strong. His matches against Mr. Perfect, you reminded me of that, were incredible. It was almost like Perfect, who he can work pretty darn fast, and has a high gear. It looked like Perfect had to catch up and keep up with Boss Man. And obviously the Boss Man, and I got to work, with him being a heel as part of the corporate ministry and being unmasked. That one there was a personal bucket list item, but probably the Big Boss Man as a babyface in the initial WWF run was my favorite character. And by the way, I want to say this: Boss Man and all these other people that we remember, even Duggan to an extent, and other people, babyface or heel, loved or hated, they still kept their characters and their promos and their truth the same. Their character just had a different person to play off of. But if you remember, Big Boss Man always cut the same promos, whether he was a babyface or a heel. Mm-hmm. Just think about it. I mean, obviously with Vince, different motivation, but in that era of the heel and babyface Big Boss Man, the promos were almost essentially the same.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't even sing his theme song. I thought you were going to sing the theme song.
He's the Mountie. That's the other one.
No, that's the other one.
I don't know Boss Man's. I know Boss Man's theme.
Ever take a trip down to Cobb County, Georgia? Yeah, this is like hard time.
Yeah, because he goes, and then it starts into it.
Yeah, he wasn't quite as flashy as Nails, but he was up there.
Jeez, Nails, I tell you.
Did you ever get a chance to interview him or an opportunity?
No, because he is never available for interviews unless you pay an awful lot of money. He has figured that he's like the only person who completely held off from doing like conventions and stuff, and he got paid big money for when he did a couple like a year ago. But no is the answer.
Scary dude.
Scary dude. Still a scary dude, I think. Right, we're going to go to the
No,
news.
I wasn't talking in past tense. No, I'm talking about now.
Yeah.
Scary dude.
Yeah, he's still freaky scary. One of the worst. Have you ever heard his real voice? Because they did the voice modulator. Boss Man! And whatever. And
I heard it in AWA when he teamed up, when he was Kevin Kelly up there.
There's a video on YouTube somewhere, or there was, of Nails on an indie show in like 94. I think this is even after the very, very brief WCW run, because people forget Nails as the prisoner, I think, in WCW in 93. And he sounds ridiculous. It's like, no wonder he had to do the voice modulator, but it's like, he should have been kept away from promos live.
I'm sure Vince thought he should have been kept away altogether.
Well, he did sexually assault him, allegedly.
Dude, whatever. It's just like, in a room alone with Nails, you probably know exactly. I mean, nobody was far away from Vince, and I don't think was ever alone to any degree after that point. Maybe with the Brett, even the Brett thing, he let everybody else, just let Brett do whatever he's going to do. But there was people around when Brett punched him.
Oh, yeah.
He would never be alone after that. I think after that nails thing. Smart move.
Just to clarify, the story goes that Kevin Wackles is his name, Nails, strangled Vince McMahon for ages before he was eventually restrained, and then he went straight over to a payphone and said, I want to report that Vince McMahon has just tried to molest me. So that's where that comes from.
How would you like to be the 911 operator that answers that call?
Well, because of his voice, like, Vince McMahon just touched me inappropriately. That sounded more like Ultimate Warrior, actually. Maybe Warrior made the call for him. Who knows? Right. We are going to do the news now. John Laurinaitis, Slimeball. I've actually put in the title here. Now, we all know the story pretty much. Vince McMahon and co, WWE and John Laurinaitis, were being taken to civil court by Janelle Grant, who was alleged, among other things, many things, quite frankly, that we all know, and I'm not going to go through them all in this, but coercive relationship at the very least, forced abuse, trafficking, and all those other types of things, I guess, which she is alleging in her lawsuit. But John Laurinaitis originally was part of this lawsuit, and now he's not. And this is where it gets really interesting. So in a court file, this is from Wrestling Observer, in a court filing submitted Wednesday to the United States District Court of Connecticut, Grant voluntarily dismissed the case with prejudice as it relates to Laurinaitis. This means she cannot refile the claims against him. The dismissal applies only to Laurinaitis. Grant is continuing her legal action against WWE and Vince McMahon. Today's filing reads, Plaintiff Janelle Grant hereby stipulates with defendant John Laurinaitis that the above entitled action is voluntarily dismissed with prejudice, which means that they cannot refile against defendant John Laurinaitis. For the sake of clarity, plaintiff is not dismissing any claims against any defendant other than Mr. Laurinaitis. Each party shall bear its own court costs. And then in a statement to Post Wrestling, Grant's lawyers say that Laurinaitis has agreed to provide evidence for Grant's lawsuit against McMahon and WWE. Brandon Thurston, would later clarify that the statement comes from both Grant and Laurinaitis. Quote, John Laurinaitis has agreed to cooperate and provide evidence in Janelle Grant's lawsuit against Vince McMahon and WWE. His agreement to a confidential settlement is a pivotal next step toward holding McMahon and WWE accountable and bringing justice to Ms. Grant after years of sexual abuse and trafficking. Mr. Laurinaitis looks forward to moving on with his life. We cannot provide any additional details at this time. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up, among many reasons, Stevie, is that this is like the second time that John has flip-flopped in his stance on what happened. So, Janelle Grant obviously sued Vince McMahon, WWE, and John Laurinaitis, alleged regarding everything I mentioned beforehand.
Can I stop you real quick and ask you a question while you have that thought?
Of course.
Was there any detail provided? Because I remember that. We're back where we were back then before he flipped back into not wanting to testify against Vince. What was the motivation to not do it and then now do it again? Obviously, now we're a lot further along. There's a lot more legal fees, or there might be a lot more damning evidence against Johnny. But what I'm saying is, why would he do a 180 from the original flipping on Vince and now be back on Vince's side?
Well, to give you the timeline, I guess, originally, after this lawsuit came out, John Laurinaitis claimed that he too was a victim of Vince McMahon. And then he flipped on that and said that, in fact, none of this happened and Janelle Grant is lying. And now, a couple of days beforehand, or a day beforehand, John Laurinaitis has said, actually, it did all happen, and thanks to Janelle Grant dropping me from her lawsuit, I am now going to provide, I suspect anyway, an awful lot of evidence against Vince McMahon and maybe WWE as well as it pertains to this lawsuit. So, call me crazy, Stevie, but it sounds like a rat trying to escape a sinking ship, and what is the best way off it?
Yes, but in a court setting, and I'm not a lawyer. I only played a doctor on TV, not a lawyer. But here's the way I look at it. When you're looking at a defense attorney cross-examining Johnny Ace or John Laurinaitis at this point, or even Janelle Grant, or talking to the lawyer and objecting, isn't he somebody, I don't know the exact legal term, but he's not a reliable witness at this point for the side of the plaintiff, because he's commented on both sides. So where is the truth? Is the truth is he's a victim just like her with Vince McMahon? Or when he flipped back and said, this has never happened, and now obviously there's a deal set in place to save his own butt and turn whatever evidence against Vince. So literally this could nullify on any level on both sides, that they could use his own testimony and his own flip-flopping against him. Do you see what I'm saying? It's very muddied, and that favors the defendant when there's doubt, reasonable doubt, either way to a witness.
Here's my theory. Very few of these civil cases actually gets caught. They are settled beforehand. So therefore, my theory is that Johnny Ace has proved that he has an awful lot of damning evidence against Vince. I suspect. And WWE maybe as well. And therefore, this letting Laurinaitis off the hook is his... Basically, in return, he's got so much evidence that it's bad for Vince that it's going to compel Vince McMahon or WWE or both of them to settle. Because I think for the most part, nobody wants this to go to a courtroom. Even though everybody says we can't wait to go and prove, etc. in court, basically everybody wants to settle because it saves yourself on lawyers' fees, if nothing else.
It really is quite... I don't know what the word is. I mean, besides confusing, but it's like so insane. These two thoughts right here. The number one in the very, very, very beginning. If Vince had just agreed to pay her the $3 million, that's the agreed upon amount on the NDA, correct?
No, absolutely.
He paid one, then refused to pay the other two, and then this all started. So think about that. I mean, we wouldn't know about any of this, much less the other... We don't even know what's going to happen with the other 16 or more NDAs. What, 19, I should say. So 18 others plus whatever on a Deshaun Watson level, kind of like whatever he did. But now we're going to settle anyway. Why didn't they settle? I don't know. What's the end game for Janelle Grant's team? What's the end game for Vince's team when it comes to this whole lawsuit or civil case? And there might, I mean, are we still talking about sex trafficking? She did get taken across state line. Are we talking about criminal charges? Nobody's ever delved in. Maybe Johnny knows that there's criminal stuff that I need immunity from as well.
Yeah, I mean, it could still go to criminal court. We still don't know.
But isn't it usually criminal first, then civil?
Yes, it is. But I mean, once again, the burden of proof is a lot lower in civil court. So, it's far harder to get, I guess, a ruling in your favor in criminal court because you have to be sure, beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah.
Whereas civil case, it's a balance of probability, whereas basically who is more right? Even if someone is 51% right and the other one's 49% right, you go with 51%. So therefore, it's a lot easier to get a judgment, I guess, in your favor.
Well, let me ask you this then. I hate to cut you off again. Let me ask you this. If Janelle Grant settles, takes money, takes whatever, they settle out of court, they go to arbitration or whatever, it doesn't get any testimony or anything like that. Part of that's probably going to be drop any future criminal charges. Or is that a separate thing for the FBI, the DOJ, the police? Do you see what I mean? What are we talking about here?
That's for the authorities to handle. They will be the ones. I mean, in this country, it'd be the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service.
Or Vince could get a pardon from Trump, too. He could have got a pardon.
Yeah, why not?
It's all washed.
Yeah, why not? Which he probably would. Right.
These are all questions, not me bringing up facts that I know, but this is quite frankly one of the most confusing, lopsided, most reverse type of things that I could ever kind of watch. I watch true crime stuff, Dateline and everything, and this is like reverse from everything I know as a couch or cinema chair lawyer watching these shows.
Yeah. See, we don't know if Janelle Grant and her team actually want to go to court. I mean, obviously everyone always says they do, but so few of these actually do go to, see the inside of a courtroom. And Vince McMahon definitely wants to put it behind him sooner rather than later because he wants to get back in business and rehab his tattered image. as well. So it'd be interesting to see when and if anything settles. But we're up to the judge, actually. I can't remember the judge's name. I actually wrote it down somewhere, but I can't find it just at the moment. That has still not been ruled upon whether it needs to go to arbitration or not. And the reason why that needs a ruling is because the contract itself says any disagreements need to go to arbitration, but then that contract is null and void if criminal conduct, basically, is the reason for, breaking the NDA, I guess. And the reason Vince McMahon didn't pay beyond the first million installment, I think it was, $1 million installment, is because someone wrote a letter anonymously to the WWE Board of Directors. And after that got out to the Board of Directors, Vince McMahon just said, well, I'm not paying you anymore. So therefore, his argument is she broke the NDA. But the reason, did she? Was it her who emailed them? Was it a friend she told before she signed the NDA who let the WWE Board of Directors
the old Monica
know?
Lewinsky, Linda Tripp type thing where they talked. And here's something here that people forget, and I want to try to keep reminding people. There's something, and probably nothing will ever happen from this point because it involves also the U.S. government and the military, is the Ashley Massara nightmare and what happened and why that continues to not come back up, and where Stephanie's also involved and had the conversation to try to get her to not talk about it and just get over it or whatever. It was literally something that I don't, you can say or guess that it did or it didn't, but this girl was not here long after all that, and they literally left her there after all that stuff happened. That's, that's a sin. It's an absolute mortal sin to treat a human being like that and then try to make it seem like it's her fault.
Mm-hmm. John Laurinaitis, I think, was part of the claims made by
He was
Ashley.
there. Yeah.
And here's the problem with Ashley's issue is because she hired Konstantin Kairos, who was, disbarred for constantly
He was
bringing...
the concussion lawsuit lawyer,
exactly.
Too, right?
So he's got a horrible reputation. And I think he's not the guy you want to be defending you on this kind. Obviously, Ashley is no longer with us and, pursue these claims, I guess. But I think that is not a knock against her. But I think, legally speaking, it would be a knock against her. Do you know what I mean? Because she's picked the wrong lawyer to represent her in that matter.
Yeah, but it doesn't discount the fact that it happened, and I try to bring it up every chance that I get, because this Janelle Grant thing is a completely different animal than what they did. It's a pattern of behavior, a pattern of cover-up, a pattern of gaslighting the victim, but at the same time, Ashley got it much, much worse, in my estimation, and obviously it ended up in complete tragedy, where she had to leave a child behind. So these people are sometimes pure evil, and they don't care.
We are going to, once again, focus on John Laurinaitis then. We talked about why we thought he's flipping. Basically, it's the path of least resistance, or what's most beneficial to him. Do you realise that one of the NDAs that Vince McMahon signed, it was for $1.5 million. It had nothing to do with Vince. It had to do with John Laurinaitis. Regarding his alleged misconduct, and apparently John and his WWE office employee had a relationship, or this office employee, whoever she may be, we're assuming a she anyway, and then when she broke off the relationship with John demoted her, and then around the same time Vince demoted John, so this is why he ended up not being vice president of talent relations from 2012, I think, and then would you believe he was rehired again some years later as well. So there is a pattern. I mean, even on the Shane Douglas Franchise University show that we do, that you stole, of course, Shane said John was always the same. He was always chasing women, constantly. It was like an obsession with him, I guess. So there's definitely a pattern behavior with him at that point, I suppose. But, I mean, as far as this goes, and say no names, of course, but, I mean, were you privy to any rumours that John was just always sleazing around the women?
No, I wasn't. And this kind of shocks me. We talked about JR in the last episode, and get well, JR, as we always pray and give thoughts for your quick recovery, and that never comes back. But he treated JR a certain way, where JR, for the most part, he was very professional as a talent relations. I don't know anything about anything with JR behind closed doors or anything like that, but he's always been on the up and up with the talent, and he's always been pretty professional from that, and he has favorites. Everybody has their favorites as far as talents and who they want to take. His was Austin as one of his best friends. Long story short, look at the way he treated JR. You talking, he fired him multiple times, kissed my butt on live TV in your hometown, humiliated JR every chance that he got, Vince McMahon. Why does he have such an affinity for John Laurinaitis? Why does he put out $1.5 million to bail out Johnny? That's weird, isn't it? It's like the queens like whores, whores like queens complex, no pun intended. They treat bad people
shared
good.
interests, maybe?
Well, that too. Yeah, I mean, JR wasn't one of them. I'm guessing and speculating, but the irony is not lost on me that JR gets treated this way, but $1.5 million. Okay, pal, no problem. Unless that was a bribe for Johnny not to testify against him at that time.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows where these NDAs go and how deep they go as well. I'd be remiss to say that John's wife at the time, the Bella Twins' mother, Kathy Kolesi, I believe that's how it's pronounced, or Kolechi, either way, was dealing with serious health problems. She was suffering symptoms akin to a stroke at the beginning of 2020, which she initially thought was Bell's palsy, but was eventually discovered to be a mass growing on her brain, which was found to be an accumulation of blood vessels. The entire time, Laurinaitis was cheating on it. Unless you buy the fact that John actually was the victim in this, which he wasn't, and then he was, and then he wasn't again.
Okay.
Not really anything to add, is there?
Okay.
Even Bryan Danielson, who was about the nicest person in the pro wrestling industry, just had nothing nice to say. He described, at the time, I think this was maybe last year, he said, soon-to-be ex-father-in-law, but whatever emotions he was going through, Bryan also said that others have it way worse, and, his thoughts were with, the real victims. I mean, not the real victims, but, all the victims, I guess, had to deal with John and Vince, I guess. Judge Russell was the one who was presiding over this case, has not decided, once again, whether it's going to arbitration or it's going to be settled in court or how it's going to end, I guess, in that sense. Anything else to add to this?
This is tough, man. Yeah, Bryan Danielson to be asked about this, and obviously, that's the thing. So many people outside of even Janelle Grant are getting hurt by this and will never be the same. Johnny's wife, the Bellas to a point because it's their mom. Bryan Danielson will have to answer for it here and there if somebody, has the guts to ask him. This stuff just keeps creeping up. Like, that's why I ask, it's here, it goes away, it comes back, it goes away, it comes back. Are we at a point now where everybody on both sides just wants to get it over with and see? Or do we really want to explore how deep the rabbit hole goes? How many of what happened to the other 18 people? Are they going to start popping up like Sean Watson? Or are they now everybody going to start? Is this the beginning of 19 civil cases and possible criminal cases for Vince and Johnny Ace? He might be excused from this, but is there more? Is there others that need to pop up after this that might be kind of lying in wait until this blows over and then they come up? This could be something Vince and Johnny are dealing with for the rest of their lives. They just kind of like a whack-a-mole thing to got into it. It's an incredibly tragic situation, but I have no sympathy for Johnny Ace, John Laurinaitis. I have no sympathy for Vince McMahon. I have more sympathy for the people around them and the people they affected negatively. And for Johnny to say he's a victim of Vince, I would love it to go to court and hear that testimony and reasoning of how you're the victim and how that works out for you. A dude that's like 6'4", 6'5", 250, did she throw you to the ground? Like, how did Vince take advantage of, did he poop on your head? I want to hear it. I'm not even joking. This is crazy for you to, sometimes the wrestling bubble just makes people say the stupidest stuff.
Right, okay then, so just before we go, we've got a couple of what went wrongs for you, and the first one is Charlotte Flair. Completely, there's something called a no-sell, and then there's almost like a no-register of a move. And this is Giulia's, I believe, debut on WWE SmackDown. She came up from NXT. She's in a triple threat match with Selena Vega as well for a Money in the Bank qualifier. And then she does one of her signature moves, like the neck twist with the feet. So, Stevie, to state the obvious, what went wrong?
All right, thank you, James. I'll take a look at this. Yeah, that was a pretty solid three-way match, which a lot could have went wrong, especially going in the Money in the Bank. So the match overall made a lot of sense and was really good to further whoever is going to go over and go to Money in the Bank. But yes, Charlotte is back on what went wrong. Let's see what happened. Now, to be honest with this, we'll watch it again. There was no real twist. It's a hard move to do with this twist. We'll slow it down. Even though she's trying to pantomime and over exaggerate that it's going, which you should do with punches, kicks, or anything else. But watch it in slow motion. I'm going to zoom in right here. Looks like she put her to sleep, by the way. I'm having a nice nap. That might have happened. It might be like a sleeper hold before she twists. Watch this, though.
Carotid arteries, I guess.
She just went up on her toes. So what went wrong? Everybody is saying, well, Charlotte didn't sell. She didn't feel anything really to sell. Now, you don't want to twist anybody's neck, but look at it, though. She twisted after she lifted her foot up. So she doesn't know quite what to think of this. See what I mean? Even with the camera cut, only a Fit Finlay, a William Regal, a Robbie Brookside, the world of sport, only they could kind of do that and jar it. You know what I mean? It's a hard move to pull off. It's kind of like, what would be cool? If I act like I twist your neck, but I don't.
Is this the kind of thing where they should have had a word backstage beforehand? Hey, I do this move.
Yeah, dude, they've rehearsed every single move now, so they know. They walk through all this. Believe me, trust me. This girl's pretty new. They're going to walk through it all. But I'm here to tell you that Charlotte did register it, because watch when she twists. She comes up and grabs but it was kind of like a nothing thing. She just lifted her heels up and then shuffled around her head. So I have to say, this isn't on Charlotte. This is just a move that Charlotte should look at and say, it's not enough for me to be wrenched. She's better off doing like a crossface to her or something and selling off of that. This twist thing, I haven't seen this girl do it in NXT. Maybe she does it for real to other people, and Charlotte, she was real light. But no, there's nothing. I've got to disagree with you here. There's nothing wrong except the move sucks. How's that?
Yeah, you're
so I don't blame
right.
Charlotte. I blame Charlotte didn't feel enough. Not that you should feel your neck twist, but it didn't feel like anything. Now, I don't know how you do that. The only thing I can relate this to is Val Venus would do the thing where you'd be hammerlocked and he would lock in his foot and do a little bit of a twist to tighten up the hammerlock, and he'd fall back. And you'd sell your elbow because it looked like he didn't really do anything except take a back bump, because the little tightening, ratcheting of the hammerlock with your arm and then falling back looked like your arm went backwards, and you can come up and sell that elbow. This move sucks. It's awful. And I don't put this on Charlotte at all, because she is registering it and selling it for what it is. If she oversold it and started kicking her feet and grabbing like she landed on the back of her head, it would have been a silly oversell. It would have been a much more what went wrong there, but I'm watching it. Now, this girl did everything right, showing it off. I'm going to twist her neck, over-rotating to this point, and then rotating back. But then she did a ballerina move with her feet. She didn't do anything. I don't know how you do that better without really wringing somebody's neck. I'm not really good at this kind of thing. But no, this isn't on Charlotte. it's easy to blame her. It's easy to, like, because she's really right now very polarizing and almost the fans just turned on her. But this isn't her fault. Sorry.
Works for me. We're going to go on to the other what went wrong, and this is something that went absolutely catastrophically wrong. And this is from AEW Dynamite. Now, we have to say here that this is episode 49. We were recording this a couple of days earlier than normally we would for various different reasons. So this clip is going to be out a lot more early than the full episode if people wanted to know why. You know, you're seeing this a bit later. But this is Kyle Fletcher versus Adam Cole from, as we record this past Wednesday's Dynamite, or if you're watching this obviously for the full episode, the week before's Dynamite, but we had to watch it. We had to show this clip because this could have killed him, quite frankly. And you always say, man, wrestlers live a charm life. And I think this is a great example of it.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. I use the word blessed. And, you know, we're definitely a charmed group of people that put our lives out there and just think it's the wrestling bubble. I want to give some context to this too. That makes it even more of what went wrong than normal what went wrongs. The injury history of Adam Cole. Adam Cole is over. He does Adam Cole Baby. The entrance is over. He's very charismatic. He's had trouble, as you can see from the weight loss. My assumption is he's had a lot of physical issues that have prevented him from keeping size on and things that have bothered him. He's been out of AEW on injury more than he's been in AEW. Am I wrong about that? He's been injured
maybe to
for
a
them
point, but yeah, he had a concussion in 2023, Forbidden Door 2023, and it was like a four-way match for the IWGP
Is that the Pillars
title
thing?
No, it wasn't a Pillars thing, but it was an IWGP title match. Jay White won in the end, and they had to rush the finish because Adam Cole picked up a serious concussion. He was out 9 months with that. And then shortly after he came back, he ends up shattering his ankle, and he was out for another year, pretty much. He's wrestled 65 matches since 2021.
That's good context and kind of a, you know, preliminary thing going into this, because you need to take care of this guy. And the concussion, especially 1 year out for a concussion, is like basically career ending in a way. It's a miracle.
That's Chris Nowinski sort of level, almost.
It's absolutely Chris Nowinski, and I wouldn't doubt it. Like if Adam Cole was trying to do some kind of therapy or do the things that Daniel Bryan did when he was off hyperbaric chamber and all the different ways to recover from that. But that's why you just never do a move like this to Adam Cole. So I'm sure somebody wanted to do it. Maybe Kyle pitched it. If Kyle pitched it, that's not smart, because I would do everything. I would fight Adam Cole to not do it if he said, or the agent said, or anything. I'll be like, I'm not doing this. This guy's had a concussion to put him out for a year. Why would I power bomb him against the apron? And it's not even like his head hitting apron, but just a jarring impact that throws your head back when you hit it even on your upper back. So let's take a look at it. Now, he doesn't even hit, right, James? He misses the apron.
I think the top of his head hits it.
Yeah, it grazes. It's only the top of his head. It didn't. Now, what I would say is, hopefully, we don't know because of the hair, but his head, this is the bar right here. It's a solid square bar. That's what I messed my knee up on. Remember I told you I slid down on a house show and it was wet and my knee struck this part of the ring apron and literally had a knee injury that required surgery. That's just my knee. His back of his head is literally, and even if it isn't, why are you doing this to a guy that's had a concussion history that took him out for a year? Tone deaf, lack of any awareness right off the bat. And then, like, you're right. What if his head hit? There's also an understructure thing right here. So there's two, and then there's like this that goes like this. It's almost like a girder or a truss looking thing. So his head could have hit that bottom part right there. It's just stupid. I don't get this. We talked about the Chad Gable thing. This is even more egregious in a way because you know about his history. You're not even trying to be fancy. You're just going to powerbomb. And like you said in the notes, nobody really reacts to this stuff anymore. Kevin Owens has been doing this for years. It's a spot now. And dare I say it, this isn't the finish, is it?
Oh, God. This was before the break.
Wait a minute. So they did this move and then they cut the commercial.
I don't know if they cut to commercial, but this is before the break. I'd have to watch it all the way through again. This wasn't the first half of the match, basically, is what I'm saying.
All I'm saying is I just don't get it. And the thing is, Kyle Fletcher can't see where Adam Cole is. So he has no range. So he doesn't know how close he is to there. He just assumes. But I'm saying too, like Kyle Fletcher could have just kind of like launched him into the apron, like kind of threw him up. But he drives him down like he's really powerbombing. Watch this in slow-mo. Or just lets him go. So he doesn't even, you see what I mean? He drops him and backs off. That could be it too. Watch when he drops him. He steps back. Normally with this kind of powerbomb, if Kyle Fletcher stayed right where he was at, almost like pushing him forward, but staying and standing his ground right here. So in other words, Kyle Fletcher backs up in this direction and Adam Cole goes down. If he takes one step forward, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Adam's going to land on his mid back. Who cares if he lands on his lower back? It hurts nonetheless. Protect that dude's head, protect his brain, protect his neck. It's a stupid bump no matter what. Middle, lower, upper back, head, whatever it is. Somebody's going to get killed, dude. I wanted to say that during the Chad Gable thing. Charmed, blessed, fortunate, lucky. Use whatever adjective you want. You put a GD in front of it, put an F-bomb in front of it, because it needs to be emphasized. Everybody's lucky right now. Everybody's fortunate. Everybody's blessed. Everybody's charmed. But guess what? Your luck is going to run out eventually. And my guess is sooner rather than later.
Why do people still do this? Because one, it never leads to a finish. Two, it's not even a high spot anymore. It's just another thing to do. And, well, pop quiz for you, Stevie. When was the last time an apron bump led to a finish?
The only thing I can think about is the apron bump that Kevin Owens gave to Sami Zayn after Sami Zayn won the NXT title. Owens debuted earlier and got his nose destroyed by CJ Parker by accident. But he came out and CT didn't beat me there, but he came out to congratulate his best friend and then threw him on the ramp and then powerbombed him onto the apron and left him laying. And he got taken out. That's the only time a powerbomb bump into an apron should be done. Even if you do it and you roll them in, there's a disconnect and all the people around the ring did not see it. You're alienating three sides of the audience when you do the powerbomb bump anyway. You get it on TV and I get it. But then again, like Adam Cole will probably wrestle next week, even if he's hurt, because I know Adam well enough to know I took enough time off. They paid me. I need to be a good soldier and I need to keep pushing through this. He probably has another concussion. Once you get a first one, especially one that takes you out for a year, you talked about it with jiu-jitsu and fighting and sparring. Think concussion.
It's tough to realize.
And by the way, I'm sorry. I'm not saying Kyle did it on purpose. I'm not saying Kyle's a malicious person. I just think everybody's getting too careless and too fast and loose. And I am friendly with Adam Cole. Maybe not, who knows, after a few episodes of this show. But I care about the guy, and I worked him, and he's always been a really, really nice guy on top of everything. And I like to see nice people remain in the business. And unfortunately, he's going to be taken out sooner rather than later if this keeps up.
I would be, I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong here, if I had multiple concussion syndrome, including a history of severe concussions, I wouldn't take a power bomb in the middle of the ring. I mean, wouldn't you just work super safe from then on if you insisted on getting back into wrestling? Or is it a modern mentality that, we saw this with Sting, that even he felt like he had to do what everyone else did in AEW? Is there a bit of a weird sort of thing where, it's monkey see, monkey do, and you just feel like you have to keep up once again, here's the word, work rate, that internet term, or else you're falling behind?
Yeah, it's hard to try to get across a style when the company, and I talked about identities of the companies and the brands, their brand, their identity is just car crash. That's what I feel like it is most times, or super, super long matches that we're supposed to know what the storyline is, and you're not even going to help us along with that. That's the identity of AEW. Dare I say it, one of the best workers and one of the guys who I can watch, I haven't watched lately, but if his match pops up or I search for it, watching people like Jeff Jarrett work, watching people like Jay Lethal work, and other people, it's not any less intense. It's not, even Adam Cole. Adam Cole working his Ring of Honor stuff is really, really good. But it can't survive because now, rather than looking special, I believe the way they present the AEW product, you're going to look like a worse worker than the other ones because you're working too safe, brother. It's too slow. It's too plotty. It's too boring because nobody's getting dropped on their head. I don't know. And it might not be that complete word for word definition, but that's my interpretation of why they do it. And it is very much the inmates running the asylum. And if you're not going to be a fellow inmate of this asylum, then you should just go to WWE then because you're too safe, brother. Got me, brother.
Aha, because you mentioned Jeff Jarrett as well. It's all right. You don't have to watch
You know what? I love
Dynamite.
watching Jeff work. Jeff worked Adam Page recently, about a month or two ago.
Yeah, Adam Page killed him. Yeah, he won a month or two ago. Jeff Jarrett's not been seen in the ring in months. Keep in mind that he's supposed to be having his farewell tour, and that he's just not wrestled in ages. And Jay Lethal, I don't think, has been seen for a while either, unless it's Ring of Honor. So
I just want everybody to be safe, make a ton of money, and make it for the longest amount of time. And unfortunately, it's not going to happen at this pace.
I'm even going to tell you, the last time Jeff Jarrett wrestled was in AEW January.
I'm going to use the Dutch Mantel joke. Some would say you never wrestled.
You'd never say that about Jeff, though.
Hey, you know who's asking about you?
Nobody.
That's a Pat Patterson thing.
Yeah. Do you know who's doing the outro?
One time with Pat, by the way, I got it wrong, or he just swerved me. He was like, "Hey, know who's asking about you?" I said, "Nobody." He goes, "Oh, no, actually, Vince wants to see you in the song." And I was in trouble.
Do you know who wants you to do the outro?
Who's that?
Me.
You want me to do the outro?
Oh, you do the outro anyway. No, I do the half outro. I do the first bit. Okay, thank you everybody for watching. We'll see you again next week. New episodes are out every single Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern and 7 p.m. UK time. And because apparently I've said GMT, but GMT is only half the year, and then BST is the other half of the year because it's British Summertime away. Anyway, if we're going to be pedantic about these things, which I like to be pedantic. But once again, clips are out every single day on YouTube. We even had a clip out of Jim Ross during the full episode day. So we seem to be doing clips 7 days a week at the moment as well. There's just so much to go on the YouTube channel. Once again, thank you everybody for staying tuned. We didn't do the merchandise plug at the beginning, but if you look under this video and every video on the Stevie Richards Show YouTube channel, you should see some t-shirts available for you there, including the BWO design, the Stevie Richards Show podcast t-shirts, and Stevie Night Heat as well. But to take us out of this show and our misery, and to also thank the Patreon supporters, is Stevie. Take it away.
Yeah, definitely want to thank everybody. We're coming up on 1 year. Episode 52 is right around the corner. So definitely appreciate all the support.
Have we ever missed a week?
We've never missed a week.
We've never missed a week.
We pre-recorded the last time, yeah. So we've wanted to be as consistent as possible. We appreciate everybody else being consistent in viewing this, subscribing, commenting, interacting, doing everything that helps us get into the algorithm, but especially our Patreon members, patreon.com/Stevie Richards. Well over 1,000 members, James. Congratulations. We have over 1,000 Patreon supporters. We appreciate that. Watch-alongs every Monday morning. Show notes, pre-show, which is the show within the show that we have discussions about things. On episode 48, I opened up a little bit on the pre-show about my wife and I interacting regarding watching that Mystery Woman Tomko match. And I love my wife. She's very supportive, but I was also very embarrassed for her to be able to watch that. But we talk about that on Patreon. Also, wanted to say Chris created a new logo, which right now for this episode may be temporary, but let us know in the comments if you like that, because he really did a great job recreating Saturday night's main event logo for the Stevie Richards show, and it's incredible. It's on the Jim Ross clip if you want to watch it. James is not privy to any of this. Chris and I have our own little projects on the side, and that it does include Patreon. We want to thank everybody once again, can't thank you enough, for supporting us on Patreon, as well as here on YouTube, and also supporting James's channels as well. But for now, aha. Thank you for watching episode 49. See you next week for episode 50 of the Stevie Richards Show.